Great.
What's up, man? Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Blessed to have you.
Appreciate it. Sophia Olivia, actually, but yeah, Maria.
Let's, it's 6 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started, please. I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I'd like to ask everybody to please silence their phones and beepers if you have any. Good evening. This board is comprised of 7 members. 4 members of the board shall constitute a quorum, and an affirmative vote of 4 members shall be necessary for the adoption of any motion. If only 4 members of the board are present, an applicant may request to be entitled to a continuance to the next regularly scheduled meeting of the board. If a matter is continued due to lack of quorum, the chairperson or secretary of the board may set a special meeting to consider such matter. In the event that 4 votes are not obtained, an applicant, except in the case of a comprehensive plan amendment, may request a continuance or allow the application to proceed to the City Commission without a recommendation. Pursuant to Resolution Number 2021-118, the City of Coral Gables has returned to traditional in-person meetings. However, the Planning and Zoning Board has established the ability for the public to provide comments virtually. For those members of the public who are appearing on Zoom and wish to testify, you must be visible for the court reporter to be sworn in. Otherwise, if you speak without being sworn in, your comments may not have evidentiary value. Lobbyist registration and disclosure. Any person who acts as a lobbyist must register with the city clerk as required pursuant to city code. As chair, I now officially call the City of Coral Gables Planning and Zoning Board meeting of July 2nd, 2025 to order. The time is 6 p.m. Jill, if you please call the roll.
Robert Behar,
Present.
Armando Bucello,
That's
Alex.
the wrong Buscello.
Alex.
Alex Bucello, I'm so sorry.
Present. Close enough, though.
Sue Kavalinsky,
Here.
Nestor Menendez,
Present.
Felix Pardo,
Here.
Javier Salman, A.B. Eisenstadt.
Here. Notice regarding ex parte communications. Please be advised that this board is a quasi-judicial board, which requires board members to disclose all ex parte communications and site visits. An ex parte communication is defined as any contact, communication, conversation, correspondence, memorandum, or other written or verbal communication that takes place outside a public hearing between a member of the public and a member of a quasi-judicial board regarding matters to be heard by the board. If anyone made any contact with a board member regarding an issue before the board member must state on the record the existence of the ex parte communication and the party who originated the communication. Also, if a board member conducted a site visit specifically related to the case before the board member must also disclose such visit. In either case, the board member must state on the record whether the ex parte communication and or site visit will affect the board's ability to impartially consider the evidence to be presented regarding the matter. The board member should also state that his or her decision will be based on substantial, competent evidence and testimony presented on the record today. Does any member of the board have such a communication and or site visit to disclose at this time?
No.
No.
Swearing in. Everyone who speaks this evening must complete the roster on the podium. We ask that you print clearly so the official records of your name and address will be correct. Now, with the exception of attorneys, all persons physically in the City Commission chambers who will speak on agenda items before us this evening, please rise to be sworn in. Thank you. Zoom platform participants. I will ask any person wishing to speak on tonight's agenda item to please open your chat and send a direct message to Jill Menendez stating you would like to speak before the board and include your full name. Jill will call you when it's your turn. I ask you to be concise for the interest of time. Phone platform participants. After Zoom platform participants are done, I will ask phone platform participants to comment on tonight's agenda item. I also ask you to be concise for the interest of time. First, we have the approval of the minutes of the March 12, 2025.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Sue made a second. Any discussion? No. Call the roll, please.
Alex Busello,
Yes.
Sue Kowalski,
Yes.
Nestor Menendez,
Yes.
Felix Pardo,
Yes.
Robert Behar,
Yes.
A.B. Eisenstadt.
Yes. The procedure that we'll use for tonight is the following. First, we'll have the identification of the agenda item by Mr. Caller. Then we'll have the presentation by the applicant or agent. Presentation by staff, and then we'll go ahead and have a public comment in chamber first, Zoom platform, and then phone line platform. Then we'll go ahead and close the public comment, board discussion, motion, further discussion if needed, and second of motion. Then board's final comments and a vote. First, before we get started, what I'd like to do is I'd like to thank two members of the board that are not with us anymore. That is Chip Withers, who's in attendance with us tonight, and Julio Gabriel, for all their devotion, time, and dedication that they have provided the board. Their leadership will be missed. I would also like to welcome, we have two new board members tonight. Nestor Menendez, appointed by Vice Mayor Anderson, and Alexander Busello, appointed by Commissioner Lara. I would like to ask each appointment to please tell us a little bit about yourself. If you don't mind, Nestor, if you go first.
Sure. My name is Nestor Menendez. I recently moved to Coral Gables in 2020. I served previously on the Transportation Advisory Board. I was Vice Mayor Rhonda Anderson's appointment on that. I was asked to serve on the Planning and Zoning Board, so I moved over to this board. I'm a practicing attorney. My practice is at 1 Alhambra, so I work here, I live here, and I've been looking for any way to give back to this community.
Thank you, welcome. Thank you, we appreciate it. Alex, welcome back.
Thank you. I was going to say, not a new member, a returning member. I'm Alex Busello. Sorry, this is a little close. I'm Alex Busello. I've been born and raised in Coral Gables. I have served on this board. I've served on the mayor. I have the pleasure of serving on the Mayor Advisory Board currently. I've served in the Code Enforcement Board. So any way I can get back to this community, I'm all in. So quite frankly, I this is not don't tell the other boards, but this is definitely my favorite board to serve on. So thank you, and look forward to serving with you guys the next couple of years.
Thank you. Also, I'd like to welcome openly Commissioner Regalado, who's with us today. Thank you very much for coming, as well as City Manager Peter Iglesias. And my understanding is we also have with us the Vice Mayor Anderson on Zoom with us.
That's correct.
Thank you. What I'd like to do first is pass the gavel over to my Vice Chair, if you would accept.
I'll accept it.
I would like to go ahead and make a recommendation for the appointment of the board member that we have as a whole. I would like to nominate Alice Bravo. We have many projects that are coming up before us, and a lot of them have to do with traffic and planning concerns. The reason Alex Bravo that I recommend is because she's a veteran engineer, civil engineer with over 25 years of experience in transportation, planning, and design. She previously served as director of Miami-Dade County's Department of Transportation and Public Works. She was the deputy city manager of the city of Miami, where she oversaw 6 departments, including planning and zoning, real estate management, and capital improvements. She has overseen significant projects, including Miami-Dade County Strategic Area Rapid Transit, SMART. And she also oversaw the Port of Miami Tunnel Public-Private Partnership, the P3, the 95 express lanes, and the reconstruction of major Palmetto Expressway interchange and several transit-oriented development projects. Ms. Bravo can bring her experience and expertise on these subjects to the board by providing her insight in vehicular and planning issues regarding projects.
Chairman, if I may?
Yes, please.
I'll second that motion. That's an incredible resume.
We have a second?
I'll have a second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any other discussions? No discussion? I close it. Jill, can you please call the roll?
Nestor Menendez,
Yes.
Felix Pardo,
Yes.
Robert Behar,
Yes.
Alex Bucello,
Yes.
Sue Kowalinsky,
Yes.
A.B. Eisenstadt.
Yes. Thank you.
If we're done, I will pass it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Proceeding forward, we have the first item on the agenda, which is F1. Mr. Culler, would you please read it into the record?
Yes, F1, an ordinance of the City Commission of Coral Gables, Florida, amending the future land use map and mixed-use overlay district map of the City of Coral Gables Comprehensive Plan pursuant to Zoning Code, Article 14, Process, Section 14-213, Comprehensive Plan Text and Map Amendments and Small-Scale Amendment Procedures, Sections 163.3187 Florida statutes, from commercial low-rise intensity to commercial high-rise intensity, and to create the University Station Rapid Transit District overlay for blocks 155 and 156 Coral Gables Riviera Section Part A, Tract A, replat of Coral Gables Riviera Section Part 8, which are the properties bounded by South Dixie Highway, Caballero Boulevard, Madruga, and Turin Street, providing for repeal of provisions, severability clause, and providing for an effective date. Mr. Chairman, there's a related item, which is F2, which is the ordinance. I'd like to read that in as well, and that we would hold a public hearing on both items, but then we would vote on them separately.
Okay, understood.
Item F2, an ordinance of the City Commission of Coral Gables, Florida, providing for map and text amendments to the City of Coral Gables official zoning code pursuant to Zoning Code Article 14, Process, Section 14-212, Zoning Code Text and Map Amendments by 1, amending Article 2 zoning districts to create Section 2-408, University Station Rapid Transit District overlay for promoting the use of mass transit facilities and pedestrian activities along transit corridors and near multimodal stations. 2, amending Appendix A, site-specific zoning regulations to remove inconsistent site specifics. 3, amending Article 14 Process, Section 14-204, transfer development rights to expand transfer development rights, TERs, receiving sites to the University Station Rapid Transit District overlay, and 4, making zoning district boundary changes from mixed use MX1 to mixed use 3, MX3, and including within the University Station Rapid Transit District overlay boundary for blocks 155 and 156, Coral Gables Riviera Section Part A and Tract A, replat of Coral Gables Riviera Section Part 8, which are the properties bounded by South Dixie Highway, Caballero Boulevard, Madruga, and Turin Streets, and to create the University Station Rapid Transit District, providing for repeal of revision, severability clause, codification, providing for an effective date, item F1 and F2 public hearing.
Thank you.
Good
Jennifer?
afternoon, Jennifer Garcia, Planning and Zoning Director. I'm going to present the item, and then we're going to have our guest speaker to speak as well.
Yes, thank you. Peter Iglesias, City Manager. Good evening, Chair, board members.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. I would like to welcome our County Commissioner, Raquel Vergao, here. She's here concerning the RTZ, our RTZ regulations. She is a wealth of information on that. She's highly experienced and very dedicated to promoting the transportation and a lot of the mobility aspects that we're dealing with along the rapid transit zone. So with that, I would like to have our planning director present, and then we're certainly here, and the commissioners here to to discuss the issue and certainly answer questions concerning the RTZ county regulations. So with that, you're most welcome, Commissioner Rivera. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Welcome, Commissioner.
It's a pleasure. So if I could have the PowerPoint, please. Thank you. So let's see. So this all started in May. The Miami-Dade County is proposing to, what is echoing? What's that? Miami-Dade County adopted on first reading expansion of the RTZ, or the Rapid Transit Zone, called Gables University Station Subzone. In that, already approved by the county is that University Station is considered a community urban center. But what this ordinance is doing is proposing actual regulations in a subzone for this area. My voice is going in and out. I apologize. I was on the phone a lot with residents this morning and afternoon, so my voice is kind of leaving me. But in this ordinance, it is granting the county regulatory jurisdiction over this specific area of our city. It also specifies allowable uses, and as well as development standards, criteria, and review of these developments in this subzone. So as a reaction to the county, the city is proposing an overlay district. We have many overlay districts in our city throughout, North Ponce Overlay District, as well as the Design Innovation District. There's many overlay districts that we have in our cities. It's not an uncommon way of planning in our city. So the overlay district that we're looking at is between Caballero on the south side, obviously US 1, and then up to Turin, and then Madruga on the south side. So as you can see from this aerial looking southwest, you can see that the Thesis Hotel's on the very south part of this overlay district. The Gables 1 tower is just next to that. The shopping center, the Universal Shopping Center, is in the middle, and there's some low-rise TGI Fridays and other properties that are just to the north of north of Madruga, I believe. So it's looking south. You can see the TGI Fridays low commercial areas on the very left side of the slide. You can see University Shopping Center in the middle. Then you can see the more taller buildings of University of Miami, Gables 1 Tower, as well as Paseo de Riviera on the very right side. So the current future land use map shows that the Thesis Hotel is a mixed-use mixed-use land use, and the rest of the properties there are commercial low-rise intensity. And the zoning right now for the Thesis is MX3, and their main properties are MX1. So the request that the city has right now, again as a reaction to the county, is to change the comprehensive plan land use map and mixed use map, as well as a zoning map, and then zoning code text amendments. And I'll go through those right now. So right now, the future land use map, as I said, shows mixed use for the south parcel, which is the Thesis Hotel, and the commercial low-rise. That'll be changed to commercial high-rise to allow additional height next to the metro station. And then the mixed-use overlay district map of our comprehensive plan would include this new overlay district. You can see those 3 overlay districts in our comprehensive plan right now: the North Ponce mixed-use overlay, the Design Innovation District, and this will be the 3rd one, which will be the University overlay district. And the zoning map changes would include changing MX1 to be MX3, again to allow for that extra height. No increase of FAR and no increase of density for that map change. So this is showing a massing of what that would look like. The existing is that top map. You can see the top image. You can see that pinkish color is right now the MX1 or the commercial low-rise massing, with the darker pink being the as of right height, and then the light pink being the Mediterranean bonus. On the bottom of the slide is a proposed. So if it was changed to commercial high-rise or MX3, you can see that massing is much higher, and again, no change in density and no change in intensity with these map changes. So looking at comparison between what we allow now in our zoning code and what the RTZ proposed by the county, and then what our mixed-use overlay district is on the far right column. So the review of our current process would be any property in this area would have to request a change of land use and zoning, as we saw more than a year ago with the University Shopping Center. So that would require a change of land use, a change of zoning, as well as a conditional use, mixed-use site plan. The proposed RTZ with the county would require the special exception and review and approval. The city is proposing a more expedited review for a faster Board of Architects review to give them certainty that they can go through the process without any large hurdles. Current height is 45 feet for those MX1 properties and 150 feet for those MX3 properties. The proposed county is 150 feet, just because they're saying within a quarter mile, the highest building. The highest building is the Gables 1 tower, which is 150 feet. The Thesis Hotel property is already MX3. So what's proposed today in the overlay district would be 120 feet, and that would not allow Mediterranean bonus height, but it would allow a couple stories, 2 stories, based on additional open space, public open space, for a maximum height of 147 feet. The density would remain the same, would be 125 units an acre. The FAR right now is 3.5, but also 1.5 for the site specifics. The proposal is to eliminate that to be more consistent with the county's no limitation of FAR to have 3.0. And then with Mediterranean bonus, that'll be additional 0.5. And then use of TDRs. As you know, use of TDRs is only allowed in our CBD and our North Ponce mixed-use district, as well as our design innovation district. This would be a proposal to expand the receipt of TDRs to be expanded to this district. The setbacks are similar to what they are right now, which is 20 feet on US 1. The proposed county ordinance is 0 feet. What we're proposing today for the overlay district is to retain that 20 feet on US 1, as well as an additional 25 feet on the rear of those larger properties, which is the Thesis, the Gables 1 tower, as well as the University Shopping Centers, and they're so deep. It also gives more space for that narrow street on the back. Open space is similar, 10% on the ground level is our underlining requirement, and we're not changing that. The step backs, as you know, right now, 45 feet required, 10 feet step back. The county, of course, doesn't have any step back requirements, but we would keep the same step backs at 45 feet for any area that's base residential, and then allow for a 100-foot step back, 100 feet to step back, 30 feet facing US 1. That's a more broader, more important thoroughfare. And in the parking, as you know, it depends on the number of bedrooms that we have in our current regulations. The county is proposing 0 parking residential units, as well as some parking requirements for commercial and non-residential units and non-residential spaces. The city is proposing as overlay district is to require parking except for ground floor restaurant and retail uses, as well as 50% reduction for the remaining required parking for the area, for the building. In addition to that, also waiving 25% if they provide a parking plan via remote parking or available transit passes or whatnot. So the timeline is we are here today at the Planning and Zoning Board. We hope to go to commission and first reading in August, and then second reading would be determined at that time. So we mailed out notices within 1,500 feet as required by our zoning code. And that was mailed out once. We posted the property a couple weeks ago, and we posted the website as well. The newspaper has been advertised as required by code. South Terminus application is consistent with the comp plan as it does promote development near transit stops and transit stations along transit corridors. It does comply with the findings of fact that should be located in your staff report and recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Yes. So first and foremost, it's a pleasure to be here. Just a little background on the RTZ for those of you who haven't followed it. We were talking earlier about Alice Bravo. When she sits on your board, she'll be able to speak specifically about the nodes. So when Miami-Dade County started its urban planning in the 1970s, ramping up to what would be the build-out of the Metro Rail before they created the TIF, they decided that we would have the creation of urban centers. And those urban centers would take 10 to 15 years to create. And the first spots that were dedicated for those were what later became the Metro Rail nodes, right? So you have 27th, 37th, Gables, all the way to Dadeland. For those of you who remember that, I was there for the ribbon cutting of the Dadeland station. It was the end of the line because our Miami-Dade ended back in Dadeland. Now it's very different. So when we went back to look at what eventually became the RTZ, one of the things that we dealt with, it had taken 25 years to do the first node being 27th and 37th, which are both in District 7. The fact that it took the county 25 years to do it, and that we were using it as an opportunity to refresh the Metro Rail stations and to really reconsider what the liner of South Dixie Highway was going to be. So we started meeting with different people about the RTZ. I was initially very critical of the RTZ because it did not give municipalities any time to match our zoning code. So we spent about a year and a half. We carved out certain areas, and one of the things that I insisted that be part of the RTZ ordinance was giving municipalities 2 years to meet us at our zoning point, right? The other thing is that there isn't really a punitive aspect to the RTZ. When the RTZ was first considered, the idea is if the cities didn't do this, X would happen, right? It doesn't have that. I've always thought that the best thing to do would be to go to the cities and prove this concept. At least in my district, that's what I've focused on. I've always wanted it to include interlocals, but that's a very difficult thing. However, I can tell you that when South Miami was considering what to do with Sunset Place, we had this conversation, and they actually met us at our zoning. So Sunset Place and also the property across from Sunset Place, which is the government center, does meet all the RTZ requirements and then some. So there was no need to bring those properties into the RTZ. And we're actually, because we have a library there, we worked on that project and we're going to be building a new library. And they're also, like Coral Gables, investing in the underline. We've used the nodes now as examples of a proof of concept. When we first started talking about the RTZ, one of the most polemic issues was the zero parking requirement. And that is not to say that someone is going to build something without parking. That is to say that the county is allowing the developer to decide what parking works for them. And Link is a prime example of that. It's now going into phase 3. In phase 1 of Link, 67% of the residents there do not have cars. They have parking, but those units do not come with that parking. That parking is extra, you know? And when you look at the zone, one of the ways that I explain it to people is, I'm a dog lover. If I was moving into an apartment that didn't allow Sam to come, I would not live there. If I felt the same way about my car, which I do not, I live in the rapid transit zone, I would not move into a building that did not have a parking space, right? I live in a home with 2 other adults. We share an electric Fiat, and we live in the RTZ. I am the only county commissioner that lives in the RTZ, but it really is a different mindset. The other thing that we tried to explain to our municipalities is that there was eventually going to be a redevelopment because a lot of the areas along this corridor are old 1980s parking lots, right? Where you have the parking lot facing South Dixie Highway, and then you have the building in the back. And the idea was to bring those buildings forward with the RTZ and to create a step down so that you actually have less density as you go into those residential areas, as opposed to continue to encroach upon those residential areas and to amass people along the corridor in the hopes that they would be using public transportation. Link and Grove Station have both proved that people are interested and living there to use public transportation. As you'll recall, one of the projects that I inherited that we've actually helped and doubled down on is the South Miami Metro Rail Station, which was Vox. When I started at the County Commission, one of the issues that we had in South Miami is we had a lot of students that were cutting up houses, living 8, 9, 10 in a house. Vox was student housing, which was very polemic at the time, and everyone thought that the world would end if we did student housing at a Metro Rail station. We're now working on Vox 3. It's been very successful. It's really curtailed the use of housing by students in the residential areas, and once again, over 75% of those students use public transportation. So the proof is in the pudding in terms of the RTZ. And this is an opportunity for Coral Gables to start meeting us at that level. As you saw in the presentation, it does not meet all of the RTZ requirements, but I believe that it is a good start. And I think that you should start somewhere. And I know that there's always pushback when we make these changes, but the alternative is live local. And we have to be honest about that. And live local gets stronger and stronger every legislative term. So as much as we get pushback for making changes to our comprehensive master plan, I think we also have to be cognizant that the alternative involves no public comment, no community benefit, no conversation about anything else. So I think it really is an opportunity for us to look at this corridor and try to envision the future and also answer the need for housing. So there is a need for housing. There is a need for housing in the corridor. I can tell you that we're committed to continue investing in the Metro Rail. We've worked on almost all of the stations. Our last one is South Miami, but we redid 37th. We just reopened. We redid 37th. We just reopened 27th. And obviously we're working on Dayland North and Dayland South, and now we have the busway. So that when you add it to the underline, one of the things that this area has is it already has a pedestrian bridge. So the pedestrian bridges, I think, were a good investment when they were made, a little ahead of their time maybe, but now that we have the underline and something to go to, not just Metro Rail, I think we're going to see a tremendous use and a real desire by people who want a 15-minute city, right? And understand the concept from a planning perspective of a 15-minute city that are going to come to this area in order to do that. My drafting of this item really is very different from what has been presented to the RTZ at this point. It includes an interlocal, it includes Chapter 33, which is what we used at Grove Central. So I've done my best to include as much as possible, and I'm always here to help the city beautiful, and I hope that you will consider their proposal. I think it is thoughtful and an important first step. Happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Not at this point. Will you be here a little later?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Jennifer, any other, no? How many speakers do we have on this item? 6 in chambers and in Zoom? Okay, can you start please with in chamber?
Hi, my name is Lisa DeTournay. I live at 10 Aragon Avenue, Suite 1405, just down the street. But I also have a property in the area that we're discussing, directly behind that. I've been involved, I've lived in Coral Gables since 1991, lived in Miami a few years before that, and I've seen so much growth. I'm not against growth, but I am against the incredible rise that we're having in our neighborhoods. I don't frankly see the push to bring so many new people into the city. These certainly aren't livable workforce places unless you make over $100,000, then you qualify, but I don't know anybody who works in a restaurant, et cetera, that makes that kind of money. I know this isn't live local right now, but that's the option, as was mentioned before, if we don't like rapid transit. I personally don't see why in this city that we pride ourselves on calling the city beautiful. What exactly does that mean? Does that mean we have a lot of trees? Does that mean we prohibit excessive growth and keep it beautiful like that? Or is this like a population contest? So in this particular area, I've been involved in the last couple years going to town halls for the area university center. The neighbors made it very clear to the developer, the owner of that property, and the lawyer, et cetera. Everybody that was there, we made it very clear that we weren't happy with 8 stories, we would like 7. There were plenty of town halls. I saw the angry owner storm out after the meeting one time. And then they they delayed anything more. And then they came back, well, sorry, you don't like it, we're going rapid transit, because then we can do what we want. Their project is to bring, I don't know how many units now they have scheduled, but thinking they'll be mostly rented to students and they won't need cars. I know from just my place that I rent out that usually my tenants have a car. So, and also the use of public transportation along the US 1 corridor only goes from here to there. It doesn't go north-south. So people are going to be using Ubers or something like that. It's still traffic. You're asking in this particular area of the proposed overlay we were talking about for single-family homes, which is pretty much everything to and past Sunset from US 1. And you're asking for high-rises to bring that much more population to that area. Traffic's already very difficult since the thesis came in to negotiate. U of M building has been vacant for a while, so that doesn't even count for current transportation needs or traffic needs. So I think what I'm trying to say is I don't know what the big push is to increase our population. I'm originally from Los Angeles, and I always compare when people say, oh, where are you from? I don't say Miami. I say Coral Gables because I'm very proud, and I compare that to Beverly Hills. Everybody knows where Beverly Hills is. Beverly Hills also has a workforce thing, but they certainly, on their main corridor, which is Santa Monica Boulevard off of Wilshire, going all the way to downtown, they certainly don't allow any building other than homes on the residential side of Santa Monica Boulevard. I don't see why we have to be so different and what the importance is of making this corridor so tall and frankly not within the perspective of the rest of the Gables. So thank you.
Thank you. Just a question, if I may. When you refer to University Center, are you referring to where the Fridays is, that shopping center?
Yes,
Thank you.
more known for Bagel Emporium.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy? And I'm sorry, couldn't make out your last name.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys. I assume that
If you could please state your name and address for the record.
Kathy Burnwhite, and I live at 6304 Caballero Boulevard.
Thank you.
Okay, and I am obviously affected by this project, which is 1 block from me. I am more concerned, however, about this huge high-rise initiative and creeping south to the waterway and the Gables waterway project. There is being proposed 9 stories across from my house, my child's house, who was raised there, and my grandchild, who's living there now. And if you put these huge buildings in that small area where they're proposed now on this, in this building north of the thesis, what are you going to say to the Gables Waterway project when they want to put 13 stories and 11 stories and 9 stories in the residential neighborhood? Oh, well, we just allowed the county to do it, so we're going to allow Coral Gables to do it. So I think it's really important that we stop the spread of brickalization of the US 1 corridor. You have high rises at 27th, at 37th, and at South Miami. You can walk to South Miami in less than half a mile. You can walk to the Douglas Metro Station in less than 2 miles. So you do not need this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Chip Withers?
Mr. Withers, welcome back.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me here. A lot of old faces, well, I shouldn't say a lot of old faces, a lot of familiar faces.
Thank you.
And some new faces, I apologize. So here we go again. A lot of people think,
if you would
Chip
please-
Withers, 1104 Hardy Road, Coral Gables, Florida. I was brought home in the house I live 73 years ago. So I've been living in the house there for 73 years, 1104 Hardy Road. You're welcome to stop by anytime. So here we go. This is, although in the rapid pace this issue has developed in the last couple of weeks, it really started in think it was 1893, the World's Fair, where the City Beautiful movement actually was kicked off. It was probably one of the most influential parts of George Merrick's life. And the whole reason for the City Beautiful movement was that the urbanization of the traffic in the cities pushed cities to think about opening up open spaces and putting in planned communities. Felix knows this. And what happened was some cities like San Francisco and Cleveland really tried to develop the idea, but really kind of fell flat on their face. There's basically 3 cities in America today: Shaker Heights, Ohio, Washington, D.C., and Coral Gables, Florida, that still use that City Beautiful concept as their North Star. So the issue that I saw for 30 years sitting in this role as the Planning Zoning Board or the City Commission was that we love the integrity that we have built in protecting our residential neighborhoods. Saying that, we're in a position right now where we've been looking at this 600-pound gorilla known as the U.S. Wind Corridor, and Commissioner Regalado, who's a real hero in my mind, respect her a great deal. She's been there, she's fought the fight, and personally I want to say thank you for your hard work in bringing this issue and really trying to protect the sanctity of some of the Coral Gables neighborhoods through this rapid transit zone. I don't see a whole lot of issues out there. We have basically 3 competing municipalities. We have the City of Coral Gables, which we are trying to protect our zoning code. We have the Live Local, which is right around the corner from us, that I don't know how much, we've discussed this, I've discussed it, and we've been told by our city attorney that we don't have a whole lot of options in slowing that down. And we have an opportunity now, it looks like, to maybe negotiate and try to work this out with the county to at least maybe not get the entire loaf of bread, but a part of the loaf of bread. So I support the initiative. I support the fact that we are acting in haste to get this done. I support the county and working with us, and hopefully we'll come to a resolution on this evening. So thank you again for your time, and welcome back, Peter. It's good to see you as always, and City Attorney, City Clerk, it's great to see you as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Betty?
I'm Dr. Betty Mortensen.
Could I ask you to lower the microphone? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dr. Betty Mortensen. I live on the 1200 block of Adwana. I am basically in the little area that they call South Gables. The reason I am coming to talk is very simple. Nobody has looked at the life safety issues, life safety problems that these 2 giant constructions cause. We're thinking of increasing the density, increasing the number of people, increasing the number of cars, because this is Miami, everybody drives, right along Dixie and right along Caballero. Right now, we have a major problem with the thesis. We were told many times by all the engineers that it would not increase our traffic, it would not delay us going. I am one of many doctors, nurses, and emergency personnel that live in the South Gables area. When a couple of minutes increases, when we are called and we have to, instead of get to whichever hospital we're coming from, in 5 minutes, it takes us 25, 30 minutes. What happens? People die. Doctors can't get to the heart attacks and people die. Nurses can't help the stroke patients and they are now stroked or incapacitated. We need to stop, slow down, and think about what this is going to mean. Any one of us could have a stroke. Any one of us could have a heart attack, a fatal problem. Without the ability of we, doctors, nurses, and emergency personnel to get to the hospitals, everybody's going to suffer. I'm not just talking about Coral Gables. I'm talking about Miami-Dade. We service Baptist, we service South Miami Hospital, we service Mercy. And a few minutes makes a major difference in someone's life or death or ability to resolve a stroke. So think, you guys are in a very unique, ladies also, in a very unique position to save someone's life. It may be yours, it may be your family members, it may be one of the citizens of Coral Gables or Dade County. So think very seriously. This is Miami. Nobody takes the metro because the metro goes up and down. It has no tributaries, it has nothing else. So to make more density means more cars, more people coming in, us not being able to do our job, which is to save people's lives. This is imperative, folks. Any one of us could have that problem. Two of my colleagues who were not in Miami, they were in their 40s. One died of a heart attack, the other one died of a stroke complications. Had they been in this area where we are able to still maneuver, it might not have happened. But if we increase the density, those of us in the South Gables are landlocked. We cannot get out. Dixie Highway is a variable parking lot. And now you're going to increase the density there and in Coral Gables. Think about it, guys, ladies. These are our lives. You are in a unique position to help save lives. Please think about this before you increase the density. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Denise Carvalho.
Hi, my name is Denise Carvalho. I live in 6308 Caballero Boulevard. I have been here before to tell what we think and say that we are against the mark, which is going to bring a bunch of new students from University of Miami to live in the neighborhood. And I was happy to see that you guys heard our message, that we didn't have a traffic study, we didn't have structure to have all these people come over and live in our neighborhood and increase in like 1/3 the amount of people that live there, just by that building alone. So now I got a really big surprise to realize that it went to the county and we had no notice. We had a notice from the city of Coral Gables that said to us that they were doing a counter proposal for the county legislation that was not going to talk to the people of the city, was not going to hear our points. And they are all counting on all those people using the metro rail. Please stand up and say, who used the metro rail to arrive here today?
If you can, please direct all comments to the board.
Sorry, but I wanted to
appreciate
make a point here. Nobody uses the metro rail. Nobody will ever use the metro rail if it continues to be that way. So you expand first the metro rail, please, Commissioner. Sorry. You need to please expand the metro rail to other areas and then build. And we have a very big traffic problem already. And at least if you are allowed this bigger than it was before denied, please don't use any, don't let anyone have cars, no parking. If nobody has parking, they're going to have to use some of the bicycles. They're students. They're not committed to the city of Miami. They are there for a 4-year term and they're gonna leave. They're not citizens of the city. And Gables Waterway is our biggest concern. It's an environmental issue, a really big environmental issue. We are very fond of our canal, and this will ruin our canal, because if you accept all that, and Gables Waterways is on the vicinity, it's like adjacent to all this, you're gonna accept Gables Waterways under RTZ, under whatever, and it's not something that is going to be a long-term good thing for our city. It's going to be bad for our city. It's going to ruin a single-family neighborhood, a calm single-family neighborhood that's Riviera and South Gables. I live there. It's been 10 years that I live there. I knew the 45 feet height that was on the code. I never expected this to be changed like that in a snap, in a signature. This is really, really concerning. I have an apartment in Miami Beach, 7330 Ocean Terrace. They wanted to build something on the side of it. It took years and lots of talks with the neighborhood to be allowed. We gained so much from it. Those TDRs don't come to our neighborhood. They go somewhere else. We lose our sky for a building like that. We increase the density of our neighborhood, and we don't get anything of that for that. So that's something really, really, really bad. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much for hearing.
Thank you, ma'am.
David Hartnett.
Good afternoon. My name is David Hartnett, and I am the lawyer and son of Catherine Hartnett, who lives at 510 Marmore in Coral Gables, which is 4 blocks north of Hardy Road, just on the east side of the Canal and Riviera Drive.
Could you provide your office address for the record?
My office address is 8900 Southwest 107th Avenue, Suite 301, and I live at the home at 510 Marmore 2 days a week. And my family has been living in Coral Gables for 95 years. I grew up in that neighborhood. I've seen the changes that have happened, and I echo a bunch of the sentiments that have been here today. And we really appreciate, I lived down in Pinecrest the other time, and we really appreciate Commissioner Regalato's leadership to a lot of these issues. Nevertheless, I urge the board and the city commission, when it travels to them, to consider a couple things. I've watched as this corridor development has occurred. And when it went up at 37th Avenue, I distinctly remember the comments from all the officials from the city of Coral Gables, which was, we don't have any control over that. That's the county, it's their land, their say, right on the Metro Rail. Now we're talking about what you do have control over in the zoning. I urge, I don't know enough about the land use and the zoning issues between the county and the city, but I do urge the city to do what it can, and if this proposal is about maintaining control over the zoning, that's one thing that I would urge the city to do. There are a couple of other things that I would articulate, which is if I heard correctly about the development that's ultimately going to be proposed at the complex, which is the Friday's Bagel Emporium, the 10-story building which used to house the Hurricane Center that now is University of Miami or whatever it is next to the Thesis Hotel. If I heard correctly, they're proposing a compromise with the county that would be a zoning height of 120 feet. If I got that right, that's probably 10 stories. Then you're talking about roofs. And then when you get to trade-offs that I've seen in the zoning over the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years, particularly when it gets up to the commission, the next thing you know, as was articulated, it sounds to me like it won't be 10 stories, it'll be 11, 12, with some trade-offs, some public land use openings, and some art given to the city that you can post around the city and walk around. For the time that I've lived in this area, which is my whole life basically, and before that, city of Miami, Miami-Dade County, of which my mother's father was mayor of Miami, we've never been a commuter town. And respectfully, those who want to make it that because of population control, it's not going to change here in the city of Miami. From the time I've grown up, they've talked about when they put in the Metro Rail from the 40 East Coast Railway, and now it's there. People still own cars. Down in the Dayland area, the building that went up, that's along the corridor just south of the last Dayland station. If I understand correctly, that building, which has been up for 2 years now, is still unrented by 10 or 20 or 30%. That's next to the lot that they just tore down where the KFC was, which is just south of where Shorty's is, of which is going to be another building that's going to go up right by Dayland, which if I understand it, is going to be there. We're already faced at Red Road and US 1 to the westbound of Coral Gables, right in that area, with a 22 to 30-story building that's going to go up, that's going to increase the population there as well. I think anybody who articulates that that these buildings are going to somehow create affordable housing in that area is grasping at straws, because I don't see it. The developers are going to come in, they're going to build high rises, and they're going to sell them at $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month, apartment wise, and they're going to be $500,000 to $2 million units at best at the beginning. Why? Because this is Coral Gables. One of the beauties about Coral Gables is what has gone on forever, which was the maintaining and not ceding control over zoning. And the reason that people live in the city of Coral Gables is because of the strict zoning and building codes that we have. And every time there's an encroachment where the buildings go higher and then they go a block over, and then the next developer comes and says, well, you see, they did it down the block, so now I'm entitled to it. That's what these people are talking about, and I believe that's what the community would articulate in whole if it was posed to them. The last thing that I would say is that I read the proposal in the staff memo, and there are a couple things here which are key to what, if I understand it, is the county's development plan, which is in theory, this is all supposed to create more affordable housing for the increase in the population of the community. Well, the words that the staff is using is may, and I would respectfully submit, I have never seen a study, read it in the Herald, or heard it articulated in the meetings that I now have started to watch with more frequency, either here or even at the commission, where there has been any articulation that affordable housing is coming to the city of Coral Gables in those buildings that are going up, or that the buildings that just went up at 37th Avenue, much less the one at 27th Avenue. So I would urge, I don't know enough about all the zoning, and I actually came here for the water management one, but I would urge this board to do what it can to maintain as much control and recommend to the commission to keep as much control over all the zoning rights we have, all the building rights we have, and how we regulate them here in the city of Coral Gables, not unlike or very much like what they're trying to do down in the village of Pinecrest, where my other home is. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir, for coming.
Daniel? And he's going to need to be sworn in.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Daniel Millay. I live at 1205 Mariposa Avenue, 433. I am quite literally facing the University Center development and what used to be TGI Fridays. I wasn't around when I was here, but now I have to go after him. So I hope I can be as articulate. I have no disagreement that development needs to be done. My opposition is to the scale at which it's being done. Anything that's done needs to be done thoughtfully and purposefully, and with consideration to real-world impacts. Everyone's talked about, the traffic, the health, the appearance of Coral Gables, but there's some things that are systemically and fundamentally wrong with trying to build up so high in these areas. So I have a simple question. Where do you turn left? Has anyone looked at the map and seen where you turn left out of that whole stretch to go south on Dixie? There's one light, one two-lane road that turns left. All of this traffic will try and go to that light, causing huge backups, or alternatively, they'll go down to the Sanford light, where it has, how many roads is it? Madruga, which leads into Manada, Augusto Street, and Miami Homestead Avenue, which is in front of the school, all lead into that intersection, which is already a busy intersection with people going south. So just fundamentally, it's not built to handle the kind of stress these giant buildings will do. Just using the Mark as an example, they wanted to do 60% of all their traffic on Madruga Avenue, or Madruga Court, the road behind. It's a 300% increase. That was one single building, which made it 2,700 trips a day on that road, which is barely more than an alley street. So that was a single building, not counting all of the other ones combined. And on top of that, the loading docks for these buildings. There's nowhere on that street that you can pull into a building physically. They may note in their own study that the trucks cannot turn right into these buildings. So what the trucks will do is park on the street to load and unload. So again, fundamental problems with trying to build these giant buildings in these tiny areas that are not designed for these. And also, to address the use of the metro. I am someone that uses the metro. I told you I live right behind the building. I work downtown. I'm a perfect example of it. I still need my car. Everything except going to work, I have to drive to. Because even going to Aldi, one stop down, 3 broken elevators on one of my trips. So can you imagine an elderly person trying to go in their grocery shopping, using the metro, trying to haul all the groceries up and down the stairs, across 2 bridges, where you have 3 different elevators broken on each bridge and the station. So it's not feasible to just assume, hey, we're on the metro line, everyone's going to use the metro for everything, because it just does not work that way. I am a resident there, I see it, so let me tell you as someone who lives there and sees what happens from a practical and realistic standpoint. As I said, I still have to drive. When I leave in the morning to take my daughter to school, half of our parking garage is leaving at the same time to go to work themselves. We live on the metro, but these people do not work because the metro only goes north-south, very restricted. There's only so many places to go. And it'll become less the more you build because, again, using the market as an example, the current square footage for retail on the University Center shopping street is 58,000 square feet. Their proposed retail was 19,000 square feet. So doing the mixed use and trying to squeeze all this in reduces the amount of retail and shopping available to residents. So then you now have to go further to anything else because it's just not there because they've squeezed out the bigger box stores that have more stuff to make little boutiques or tiny little cafe restaurants. Then now you have to go out for further for more things. So just because they've done it at other places does not mean it works here. We cannot say, hey, look, they're doing construction down there. That's great. They're developing. Let's do it here too, without looking at how it actually impacts. Just the fact that they're building and having this idea that, oh, you're on the metro means everyone will use the metro does not mean the reality of the situation is what you envision it or a perfect scenario it is. So I want to again emphasize that I am not opposed to development. I just want to scale it way back and not have these giant buildings that do not fit the area in any way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Roger Cogan.
Good evening. My name is Roger Cogan. I live at 1127 Manatee Avenue. And like Chip, I've been living on that block for 65 years. I have to tell you that, like most of everybody else here, I am not opposed to development. I remember when the food fair was at University Center, when I used to go there with my mom. All right, I just wanted to tell you, I am very familiar with that shopping center. I'm also familiar when they built Gables Tower when I was going to West Lab. I used to ride my bike from West Lab to my house and stop and watch the construction every day while that building was going up. Again, I'm not against development. I understand what's happened to the shopping center over the years. And that's fine with new development, new people coming in. There's no problem. It's the scale that we're talking here. As a person that's lived in that area, as I mentioned, 65 years, I can tell you exactly how the traffic patterns are. I don't care what traffic study says. I have personal experience, life experience. And the only way, like the previous speaker said, if you want to make a left turn now because of from the Theseus development, the only place you can go is to the corner by the junior high school, Mayonnatta That's not me, is that? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that was my phone. To make a left turn. Now, you have a bunch of roads leading into that. You have the kids going to junior high school in the morning and in the afternoon with the buses. It's a complete disaster if you add more density, more traffic. That's just one of the issues. Another issue is future development. If you allow this in, how about the University Waterway project? They're, like another speaker previously said, they're going to point to that and say, hey, how about us? That's what happened down on the Coral Gables Waterway, if you remember, when when the city tried to fight that new building going up, the developer said, hey, they built one, and you know what happened there. The courts ruled in their favor. All I'm saying is do not cede the zoning to the county, because what we're going to end up with is something that we're all going to hate. And remember, once this building is built, it's not coming down. It's going to be permanent, and we're all going to have to live the consequences. Like I said, I'm a homeowner there, grew up there, and also you have to remember is that there's no sidewalks on Hardy, there's no sidewalks on Madruga, there's no sidewalks on Caballero, and there's no sidewalks on Turon. I don't care what the developer says. If you go to JC Park in the morning or afternoon, all you have to do is look at all those people with their children in their strollers, riding their bikes, whatever. You're going to have a mess. People are going to get hit. And as a person, and if you want to ask Mr. Weathers, he sees me every afternoon riding my bike around the block. I can't tell you how many close calls I've had right now since the thesis has gone up, not being hit by a car, okay? And also, Uber pickups, Uber drop-offs, they're using the parking at JC Park. They're not going into the building at all. They're not going into the valet area at all. Also, also want to talk about the circle there, the traffic circle. I'll be happy to send pictures over to the board here. 3 years ago, a car carrier went around that circle, couldn't make it, drove right through it. I have the photos on my phone if anybody wants to see it. Took down the shrubbery, took down the street signs, called the city of Coral Gables Police, non-emergency, gave them the license number of the car carrier, nothing happened. This has gone on and on and on. I would ask you to check Public Works and ask them how many times they've had to replace the foliage and the signs there at that circle at Caballero and Hardy. It's quite a few, I can tell you from personal experience. So all these issues, I just, one final thing, just to inform you. Chip, did you get a notice in the mail? Yeah. You did? A lot of people on Manatee did not. And you have to take into consideration, my next door neighbor on the opposite side of the street didn't get a notice. They had no idea about this. So I'm just saying is, yes, you followed the law by setting out so many feet, but this affects everybody in the University Estates area. On east side of Mayonnatta, west side of Mayonnatta, the same on Hardy. So I would advise, just a recommendation in the future, extend it, because everybody uses Mayonnatta and Hardy is going to be affected in that neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Victoria Willer?
Sorry, I was going to ask if there's anybody else.
Yes, and then we have 4 speakers on Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Victoria Weller. I just got off a 10-hour flight from Europe, and I came because this is an important issue.
Could you state your address, please, for the record?
1218 Adwana Ave.
Thank you.
As a younger member of the community, me? Oh.
Let's get you sworn in since you came later.
The right hand.
Yes, I do. Okay. Hi, did I accomplish all prereqs? Okay, perfect. Awesome. As a younger member of the community, I've grown up in Coral Gables. I love Coral Gables. And one of the beauties of Coral Gables is the aesthetic appeal to it. And I'm in a unique position in my life right now as a young adult that I can afford to buy property. And one of the places that I look into is Coral Gables. because I think it's beautiful. If I wanted to live in an urban, high-rise area, I would. It's not. I want the community. And I understand moving forward development is important, and it'll happen. But I agree with the previous speakers that scale is key here. And living in that community for so many years, the traffic, even with the thesis, what that gentleman said before about the traffic circles is very true. I can no longer, drive to the park, and I use the park. I play tennis because I guess the Uber driver use it. I can tell you, I use the street right in front of the thesis, and it is backed up 4 cars. I use my horn more often than not, or I take the little gap that's where the waterway is, that little gap through that parking lot. And, with the development coming in, that's not even an option for me in the future. What I'm saying is that this will affect everyone in the residential neighborhoods because traffic needs to continue to flow forward. And if it can't because US 1 is overly congested, and let's be real, it is, they'll take the back roads of the neighborhoods. And those neighborhoods, one of the appeals to them is that, people walk around. There's a sense of community. And if you take that away because there's more cars, there's more traffic, there's more people, because the density is increased because we're putting 10 stories, buildings or higher, then, you take away the appeal of the beauty and the aesthetic, or what I find unique about Coral Gables, which is like, it's green, it's, city beautiful for a reason. So I think, you guys have an opportunity to listen to us and also decide moving forward what the best way to go forward with what the city, what you guys intended to be, but it would affect, and I think scale is important to consider in this option. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome back.
Henry Pinero.
Hi, my name is Henry Pinera. I live at 1215 Aduana Avenue, basically 2 blocks away from the affected area. I want to ask a couple of questions and leave you with an anecdote. So why is it that all of these type of zoning changes seem to happen and seem to occur during the dead of summer? Why do we get notifications while I was out on vacation? I just barely got back for this. Is this designed on purpose? I'm just asking the question, and I want you guys to do a...
If you would just make your comments and statements, and we'll note your questions, and then at that point, if anybody on the board will take that up and answer it, we'll take it at that time.
Okay, take it as a rhetorical question.
Understood.
And I'll fill in my theories. I think that this is done on purpose so that there is less attendance, less participation. I was on a group chat with my neighbors, and a lot of them were out. I just managed to make it in for this. My question is, are you guys asking yourselves the question of why these major zoning changes are happening in the dead of summer? Why it always feels like it's happening with very little notification, which I think is something that some others have brought up. Just asking the question. I want you guys to really look at it as neighbors. If your neighbors are being affected by this, would you listen to them? Would you take it to heart? I feel like there's a concerted effort to get this passed, and I would like you guys to ask the right questions of all those that are in favor of this. That's number one. So why is the theory behind all of these developments is that it is going to be transit-oriented development, and it's going to spur people to use the metro rail and all sorts of traffic transit. Well, I have never seen a study. We have multiple developments that have been put in place. The Paseo, the buildings further on, further up north on US 1, closer to Coral Gables High. No study has been done since any of these buildings has been erected to show an increased use in the metro rail by the people that live there. Why hasn't that been done? I would like to understand that. Why don't we test the theory that is driving all of this? If we are a data-oriented society, if we've got cameras everywhere, if we're measuring the traffic going through one location and another, why can't we get that data? Why can't we see the effectiveness of these theories? We have multiple data points that are being ignored. That's the second question. The third point that I want to make is an anecdote that I want to share from a month or so ago. At the Paseo building, there was a graduation ceremony or some type of graduation party being held. I came home at 11-something at night with my family. I tried to turn into Caballero. I could not turn in. Everything was completely backed up. My point is, I had to go back and double back and use a side street. Cost me several minutes. My point with this is that the impact of these developments is not being quantified. I'm an engineer by training. I want to see quantification, that we have the tools to test these theories out. The reality is that it is not driving the use of the metro rail. The truth is it is impacting the neighbors directly. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Jill, anybody else in chambers?
No.
Okay, how many do we have in Zoom?
So far, 4.
Okay, please call the first person.
Francisco Senior. Mr. Senior, can you please open your camera? Would you like me to go to the next speaker?
Yes, please.
I think he's connecting.
If he comes back, we'll take him before.
He's connected.
He's connected?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
There you are, sir. A little frozen, but you're there.
Mr. Chairman, if it's possible, we would need to swear these.
Yes. As long as we can see him. Sir, would you raise your right hand, please, so you can be sworn in?
I think he's happy.
Jill, if we can, let's move to the second person, and if he's able to figure out his internet, we'll circle back.
David Woodbury.
Is it the internet of the city or?
Are you having the issue with the second person also?
I could see him on the camera. Okay, now he unmuted himself.
Okay.
David, can you hear us?
Mr. Woodbury, are you there? You're muted. Mr. Woodbury? We can't hear you. Jill, is it a problem with the city's internet or equipment, or?
I've given them access. I've actually made them co-hosts, so it might be just signal.
Could we try the third individual?
Sure.
And then we'll keep those other two people in mind, please.
Julie? She's on anymore. The third speaker was Julie, but she's no longer on.
Okay.
And I also have Maria Cruz.
Could we put Mrs. Cruz on, please?
Sure. Ms. Cruz? Mrs. Cruz?
Mrs. Cruz, are you there?
Just for the record, this has worked in the past. We seem to be having a problem tonight.
Jill, is it possible to maybe have these people, I know without being video, there will be any evidentiary value, but maybe we can get them on sound only without video, and that may help going through?
They've been unmuted. They have access.
They have access?
It's not coming through.
Okay.
Can we get IT person maybe to help out?
Well,
I might suggest that we move on with the proceeding, and then we can
If
hold it
we can
in
open it back
advance
up.
when they come back up.
I would agree with that. While we're waiting for them, I'd like to ask Jennifer a question, if I may, please. There's been a lot of discussion about what the county's doing, and there's been discussion about what we're trying to do. Can you talk about the RTZ as it relates to the county only, if the city doesn't implement its own? In other words, what's the radius of the RTZ for the county?
I believe it's a quarter mile for the community urban center.
Okay.
The Douglas Center, for example, is a metropolitan urban center. It's a little bit wider or larger circle. But South Miami and the University Station is a quarter mile.
Okay,
around that station.
so for the county, we're talking about a quarter mile radius from, I guess, the entrance to the metro station?
So the RTZ actually, if you look at the map, goes along the entire smart corridor. However, it is not as of right. The properties have to come in to the RTZ. So that's where you get the confusion, right?
Okay.
So that's why I said like the RTZ has existed as an overlay, but the properties have to come in one by one.
And if a
Or
property...
in pairs, whatever.
Sorry. And if a property asks to come in, is it automatic?
No.
What's the requirement for a property?
So there is a process by which they come in, and it has to be brought to the Board of County Commissioners. It goes to first reading, it goes to committee, and then it goes to second reading. And there could be delays in that process, right? And the commissioner of the district is normally involved in it.
And what the city is now trying to do, my understanding, is to be very specific with 3 or 4 specific addresses that would be in the RTZ with the cities.
So what the city is looking at doing is looking at the zone around the current property that has requested to come into the RTZ, because what the RTZ item does once a property comes in, it also creates a small overlay. So the city is looking at a similar overlay footprint.
And that footprint is not the quarter-mile radius that it's looking at?
No, it's just those 5
It's
properties.
less.
It's smaller.
Okay.
It's smaller. But the RTZ actually overlays everywhere where the smart plan goes, the RTZ follows it.
Understood. Thank you for the clarification. Jill, do we have anybody back up?
Is there a connection? Let's try again with Mr. Senior.
Let's try one more time with all three, please. And if not, do we have anybody on phone?
We have 3 people on phone, but they haven't indicated they wish to speak.
Okay. Let's try those 3. If not, I'll go ahead and close it for public comment. If they're able to resolve their issue, then we'll take it up at that time.
Mr. Senior? I think we have David on. David, can you hear us?
Mr. Chairman, I think we should go on, and if they able to resolve, we open it up again.
I agree. At this point, let's go ahead and move forward. I'm going to go ahead and close it for public comment. If those 3 individuals are able to figure out what it is, I will go ahead and open it up for them to speak.
Chairman, how about if they put a call-in number? Maybe it's a Zoom issue?
It's in there. That's why I asked if there
Okay,
was.
understood. Thank you.
All right. Felix, would you start us off?
I'd like a little clarification. I'm a little confused with
Please.
The whole premise.
Your mic's on.
Good? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm a little confused with the premise. We had a project that came before us a while ago, and it was a certain project to develop there on the property where the existing shopping center is. Okay. So as far as ownership, et cetera, it's still the same. It's only the design constructs that are being changed through this specific university transit district change, correct?
The way Jennifer, sorry, you want to?
Yeah, so the former MARC project has expired. The expiration for the Board of Architects approval has already expired. I think after this board, they went to the county and rallied the county to create an overlay, or not overlay, but an expansion of the RTZ legislation to be able to incorporate that property into the.
That specific project went to the county
Yes.
to request this at that time.
Correct.
Okay.
Did they go to the Live Local
And-
also?
No.
But they could?
To the city, sure, yeah.
Chair, if I may, what is the, I apologize, Chair, may I?
I hadn't finished yet.
Please, continue.
So understandably, we had been looking at a specific project that had gone to the Board of Architects that had a certain design, so that's out the window.
I haven't seen anything from them since it came to before this board last year, early last year.
Right. So basically, the change of zoning that they were requesting at that time from the city of Coral Gables
Correct.
is null and void because they were able to, let's say, for the use of a better word, and I don't mean to offend anyone, to usurp that specific request and then continue and ask for this specific project. So if that's the case, from what I understand, Commissioner Regalado, the nodes that are existing on the corridor are complemented by the busway, which in fact, Alicia Bravo, who was an excellent engineer and was in charge of that at one time in her many capacities over the years, was augmenting and then finishing and this complimentary bus service that was being attached to that. And she was basically in charge of doing that to be able to have those components of the bus service to be able to complement these particular stations. So my first question from a conceptual standpoint, and I know how powerful your seat is and your position and your knowledge is of all these different things, would it be, first of all, difficult to request a better specificity of the complementary bus service from this particular station, mass transit station, that goes in one direction, as was addressed a couple times, where it could be more useful, to the city. For example, many years ago through Billy Kurdike, the trolley system that was created has helped substantially over the years, where it's been copied by many municipalities throughout the county. The ridership is incredibly high because it's incredibly efficient. Obviously, it's the right cost, but that, I think, would be very important. The second thing is
do you want me to answer the transit one?
I'm going to ask you two other things, because I know you could talk and chew gum. There's no doubt about that. But I think, Commissioner, that the smart corridor concept, the negative, which I have seen, and I've seen other commissioners, like in District 8, Commissioner Higgins, yes.
Oh, yeah, Cohen Higgins and Keon McGee, right, 8 and 9.
Right, and then one of the things that she was concerned on a project in her district, which is almost at the end of the line near Homestead and the highway, was that basically most of those people there, their single-family homes are much closer to the smart corridor, and she was very concerned about the impact of basically upzoning the properties that were within that distance, the 1,000-foot, I think it was, if memory serves me right, and therefore upzoning those areas without any type of public hearing process and or an understanding of the compatibility issues that were there. And she was, in a particular case, she was able to win the day for the residents in that case. I would think that the second step, as far as the bus corridor component, to be able to make it more usable for the residents of Coral Gables, would be the possibility of finally resolving the Caballero intersection, because it's almost a hypotenuse triangle there, and it becomes a funnel effect that people can't get out, as has been stressed by many of the neighbors here today. That's been going on for a long time. It's only gotten worse with the two large projects that were built there. So I know that we're at the mercy of DOT, but I think that it's essential that that finally gets resolved with some type of mechanism that through engineering that could be hopefully addressed. And then the third item is that if when you look at these corridors, I don't see anywhere, and I don't know if you have any objection of carving out a larger component of it, where you could carve a larger component, to provide parks, for the people that would live in this area. So many of these students that would be going to the University of Miami may not have cars, but they have recreational needs. And we have very little large recreational spaces. These little pocket parks are maybe essential for you to walk your dog there and back, but not to use them. Would you address the concept?
Of course. So I'll start with the last one first. One of the things that we're looking at this corridor is obviously the investment that we're making in the underline. The underline phase 3 is very different from underline phase 2 and underline phase 1, just because of the amount of space that we have. So a lot of the park concerns and a lot of the outreach that we did in this area was to the programming on underline phase 3. So underline phase 3 in the city of Coral Gables, for example, includes a dog park. because that's one of the issues that kept coming up when we were meeting with Coral Gables residents at the underline. We're also in the UM area near this site, where we have a little bit further down the Baptist one that we just broke ground on. So that's the Baptist, I think it's the Pine Rockland Garden there. And then we also have an outdoor amphitheater that's going to be created, because the underline in this part of the Gables creates a complete reshuffling of the parking spaces and actually is going to have large spaces. In this area also, we'll have a little bit further down the microforest. So the microforest are more green space, stormwater retention, green infrastructure, because that part of the empath actually floods a lot. And that's one of the things that we took into account, the natural reservoir that occurs there and putting the microforest there. So the one thing that we have considered in all this area here is requiring developers to do bike lanes, pedestrian walkways, right? And that's throughout this entire corridor, including part of underline phase 2. So that's first thing there in terms of the green spaces and the parks. The second part of your request in terms of the intersections is important. Right now, Stacy Miller is our new Director of Transportation. She used to be FDOT Secretary for District 6. So we're very excited about what she brings to the county. We have been working on the busway that you mentioned, intersection by intersection with FDOT. Actually, the intersection at 136 has taken over 7 months to figure out because they can be very challenging. I'm always open to helping with intersections. Our team recently redid the intersection in Mass Academy on the Rickenbacker, because we had asked the school district a million times and we just went and we redid it. So if you want to look at Caballero, I'm happy to work with Pete, and bring Stacy and the team in to look at it and see what can be done. When we get requests for traffic calming or traffic realignment, it has to be approved by the municipality first and then sent to the county. We cannot take on the request without the approval of the county commissioner, or at the minimum, the manager. So always happy to do that. And we've been called in on a few intersections. And we get called in on a lot of pedestrian crossings. And we're happy to help with those. The only thing I would say about the ped crossings is more and more we're finding them just not to be effective. So we've been asking FDOT to provide us with different tools, right? Just because the nature of Miami is such, unfortunately, that people see yellow and they go faster, not slow down. It's a challenging, I know, it's a challenging situation, but it's one that we deal with all the time. But that's always on the table. So we're always here, happy to help with whatever intersection. The only thing that I would add to that is usually we get a lot of requests for stop signs. The district does put a limit on how many stop signs we can use in certain areas because it just slows down traffic. But the county does have an overlay, and we are looking at actually slowing down the speed in all residential areas. So that's something that we're currently working on, that the board actually passed unanimously about 6 months ago. Now, in terms to what happens through when you have the RTZ development, right? The RTZ and how it works really is, like I mentioned, we have the overlay, and then the different sites come in. When those sites come in, the commissioner of the districts makes certain requests, right? In this particular RTZ application, this is the first one that comes to the county that includes an interlocal and the use of Chapter 33, and that is by design. That was my request to the board. I want the city of Coral Gables to have a seat at the table and to be able to weigh in. It is the same vehicle that we use for Grove Central when we did it with the city of Miami. So this is actually the first non-governmental owned property to come in with a request of an interlocal and participation by a city. I actually came before the city when I submitted the RTZ application the first time. And I have met with all of them about it. And this is a byproduct of a lot of those conversations. In terms of the transit, I think we need to clarify a point. While the Metro Rail, as currently constructed, only goes from one end to another, there have been several investments that change the way that the Metro Rail works. You mentioned the trolley, and one of the things that we're working on at the county right now is once again giving the municipalities more flexibility in terms of county connectivity. I'm working on an item that actually forces the cities to work on having joint trolley stops. So for example, in the city of Coral Gables and the city of Miami, when you get to 37th Avenue on the city of Miami trolley, you have to get down at one site at the city of Miami 37th, and you have to cross 37th Avenue to now get on the Coral Gables trolley and continue your route. So we're actively working to bridge those gaps so that we can have a more unified trolley system, and we're not being ridiculous with like a few feet. So we're working on that. The other thing is I sit on the board of Tri-Rail. I'm currently the vice chair. I was the chair for several years. Tri-Rail actually goes all the way to West Palm, and it meets at the MIC. You can take the Metro Rail to the MIC, and you can take the Tri-Rail there all the way to West Palm. I also was very proud to open Miami Central Station. You can take the Metro Rail to Miami Central Station, and now you have a direct all the way to West Palm. And you can also take the Metro Rail to the Hialeah Station, where you can connect with Tri-Rail again. So one of the things that we're doing is not only are we looking at connectivity separate and aside from the buses, which we are connecting, and the trolleys, but we're also connecting all other systems. Now in July, we launched our One Ticket app. This is a tri-county app that allows you to buy tickets for all 3 counties on the same platform, and gives you the schedules for all 3 counties. And if you visit the link at Douglas, one of the things that they incorporate in their design that I think allows so many of their users to use public transit is they actually have boards with all the current times for the Metro Rail, for the Metro Mover. They have a rideshare drop-off point, they have Tri-Rail, they have Brightline, and they have the ways that you can connect there. And they're also pushing out the app when it rolls out now in July. So we are working on the Flagler now. So we're working on Flagler, we're working on the Coastal Link. These are all transit projects that the county is working on in the hopes of undoing the 20 years where we were not working on transit projects.
So Commissioner, since you have a hand in what you want and what you don't want, one of the things that I'm very concerned with also is from a visual impact. These people have been living in their neighborhood in single-family homes for years and years and years, and they're pretty expensive homes. And all of a sudden, the last thing you want to do is look through your kitchen window and see, this behemoth there.
100%. And that's why my item said that it would not and cannot be taller, or they cannot be taller than what was already approved by Coral Gables. Coral Gables approved the thesis. There's a series of buildings that are a lot taller than what what this RTZ item states. And that's by design. Not making a judgment call on what has been approved by the City Beautiful, but I specifically limited this development to its surrounding areas, and it has to be compatible with its surrounding areas and actually smaller than what has already been approved.
The one thing that we do not have in the city of Coral Gables is stepping down, when the height is at a certain point. Especially, it's not so much toward US 1, the corridor itself, but it's more toward the residential area. I mean, it's just common sense. The city of Miami has it, and
The RTZ has it.
There should be absolutely no reason why this could not be implemented here.
The RTZ has a step down.
And the second part is that having a landscape buffered area, continuous area there where, fully mature trees can grow abutting that area, not now, but within years, where they can get up to 40, 50 feet in height. That would really, giving them the space to do that, I think would be very good to be able to buffer the negative impact.
Right. So the landscaping is always something that I include in all my applications, right? So that this would be no different. Obviously, you want a buffer. Again, we're very early in this process on the county side, so we'll see what happens as we go to committee and as it moves forward. But the idea was that the Coral Gables could also mirror some of this and start having those conversations, and those are all requirements that you can also discuss with staff and make recommendations towards.
I have one final question for you and then one for our attorney. So the final question is, when you look at the timing, it was very overwhelming to receive this package on a Friday afternoon, and you're going through hundreds of, not only this application, but other things. And unfortunately, I read everything, and I'm looking at this, and I'm saying, wait a minute, am I misunderstanding? Are you under a timetable crunch? In other words, from your first motion to your second one, is there a 4-month limit, or did I misread that?
The timing on the city side is not something that I control. I can tell you that this item went to first reading. Right, on the county side, right. This item went to first reading and now goes to committee and then goes before the full board. So yes, that item is already moving through the county commission.
Right, but you still have access to be able to amend it.
Yeah, we still have the public hearings, it still has the final reading. It just had the first reading. The only time that we can't speak on an item is when it goes to first reading. So there'll be an opportunity at committee and at the second reading.
Right, because the thing is that the rest of the devil's in the details, and there are a lot of details in there where I found many discrepancies within our own staff's, whatever, and maybe it's because they're trying to do too much, in a short period of time.
Are you speaking to what was presented here, that Coral Gables, or the item that is before the county commission? Because they're two different things.
No, and the Coral Gables component. What I wanted to make sure is that there's enough time to vet this properly at the City of Coral Gables side, to make sure that everything, works well and we get all the kinks out of this.
I can't speak to the timing of Coral Gables. I really can't. I have no way of knowing how, I guess, yeah, you wouldn't speak to the timing. Yeah.
So after we were given notice that the county moved forward and have our first reading in May, we reacted as quickly as we could to try and research and look what was being proposed, highlight our concerns, discuss them with you, have a more or less complete draft of our ordinance, what we would do for overlay district within our city. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but as you know, our process is planning and zoning commission for first and second reading. Their county process is a little bit different.
Well, until the public hearing today, I mean, there are many items there in your component that I think has to be looked at by this board, before taking a final action on something like that. And so
Right. The only thing that I would add, I mean, the developer has opted to go with the county. I think it's important that the City of Coral Gables is giving another option. One of the questions that was mentioned before is, what are the options? These are privately owned parcels, right? Their options are Coral Gables, right, or whatever municipality, RTZ if they're within the smart zone, or live local. They can move within those options however they please. We have nothing to do with that. All we can do is respond to their requests. So in terms of the timing, that's what I'm saying, in terms of the timing, there's really, we have our process. Coral Gables is now initiating their process, but this is not a county-owned parcel.
So at this point, is the city driving the bus, or is the county or the developer? Which one of the three?
Well, the developer initially chose the City of Coral Gables and went through a process with Coral Gables for a period of time. I don't know how long that was, but I know that you all saw the project. And now they've made the request to use the RTZ. To date, that is my understanding of the situation, right? The city is now offering an alternative. I have no way of knowing how that alternative will be received by anyone in that overlay district. There's no way that we would know that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Attorney, my last question, which is precedent. Any other project outside of this zone cannot be pulled in or used as a, this is a precedent for that particular project. This is a concern, a good concern that was raised by neighbors. And I just want to make sure that you're in agreement with that.
Well, the point of precedent is only precedent if a board says it's precedent. So I can't tell you that just because one area was developed, does that serve as precedent for another area? It's only precedent if a board believes it to be precedent. And sometimes it's not viewed as precedent. It's viewed as a separate entity or issue. I can say that with regard to what's before us, the county has their own process. I think it's the city's desire to say, well, we'd like to try to match you as close as possible so that we could keep the process within the city rather than ceding the zoning jurisdiction to the county. We won't have a choice. The county's position is we can take jurisdiction because under our home rule, this is their argument. I'm familiar with it because I was an assistant county attorney for 36 years, so I understand that they believe that they have jurisdiction to take these areas relating to Metro Rail, and they can take jurisdiction. And while the county will have while the city will have a seat at the table in the decision-making process, there will be other seats besides the city's seat. The city is trying to convince the county that, hey, we've got a process. We are close, but not exact, but some of the places that we're different on have a rational basis why they're different. And we're hoping to show the county, even though you've got a public hearing next Tuesday, where if it's approved at that public hearing, then it goes to the county commission for final adoption. So they're on a track. I don't know how long they'll be, but they're moving. So the city wants to try to say to the county, listen, before you make that decision, give us a chance to come up with a process that will come very close to what you're trying to accomplish.
Right. And that's why the commissioner is here.
That's why the commissioner is here, and
Right.
that's why there is a certain urgency to the application. by the
Chairman,
city.
those are all the comments I have.
What I'd like to do, I was informed that the Zoom, the reason it's not working is because the city needs to restart it. What I'd like to do is take a brief break so the city can restart the Zoom.
Yep.
And there's people that are waiting to speak. So what I'd like to do is take a short break, maybe about 5 minutes. I don't know if it takes longer, so the city can restart their Zoom and we can listen to those people. Thank you.
Everyone on Zoom, please make sure you use the Zoom link 870-9513.
5-minute break. Again, it's just to make sure we have more participation. And Mrs. Cruz, thank you for coming and your dedication. It's always nicer to see you in person. It was because, like I said, what happened?
Make sure we all are on the same page.
System was recognizing. They have to reboot.
Here, everyone.
what I would do is I would go to Jill, who's the secretary, ask her that question. She's with the staff of the city. Thank you.
If you can point me to the audio system, I'll take a shot at it.
They're working on it. They're working on it. Thank you, though. I really appreciate the help. Hi, how you doing? I'm trying to. Oh, you're somebody, okay. Yeah, no, I'm handling the Zoom along with the CGTV. Do you need something that maybe staff could assist?
Oh, yeah, I'll ask. Who should I talk to?
Okay, Arceli maybe?
Test, test, test. Hear me? Testing. This is a Zoom test. This is an audio test.
Yeah, the audio's working. We can hear you.
All right, sounds good.
Recording stopped.
It should be, what is it, planning@coralgables.com, right?
This is August 2023.
Yeah,
This is one of many, many times.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So, sure, sure.
I'll be happy to text these.
It's this one. Yeah, it's the old one. That one gives you access to that room, yes.
Right here. But, you know, at the time I was in my car, I had a phone handy. Usually, I keep
Let me just look at it from my phone, okay?
Sure. That's all I was trying to get to. So I can put it.
So wow, you lived here for so long, huh?
Yeah.
You really grew up here, that's good.
Yeah, my brother,
I closed it.
Mr. Withers, is friend.
Oh, that's good.
He's living in his family's home. I'm on the opposite street. I'm on the opposite side. He's on Hardy. I'm on Main.
Oh,
Okay, basically almost catty corner.
yes, I closed it out.
Yeah,
I'm
another
gonna
thing
open
is,
up again. Do you want me to start the meeting on my end?
I think the house, 1125, was the last house on my street that got a notice. Everybody
Nope,
else
I did not.
on the south side of Manatee didn't get any notice about this.
I did not hear. Did you hear something?
Maybe they were not within the
For the audio?
radius. Yeah.
But you know, this affects everybody in the University Estates area.
Yeah.
So they were, because nobody uses Hardy to walk up and down to go to the park. If they're on the west side,
Okay,
east
so
side of Mayanata.
you have it open actually.
Recording in progress.
Yeah.
That's right, they cross
A
there.
meeting in
They
progress.
take the sidewalk to Manatee.
Okay, so
and
I
they
am
walk
going
down
to-
Manatee to the park.
I'm gonna join
But
now.
this is my email also.
Okay.
Okay, so that's my arevilla@coralgables.com or planning@coralgables.com.
Okay, so A-R-E-D-I-L-A. That's
Yeah,
an A?
yeah.
Okay.
So my name
I
is
thought this was a way to change
Arceli.
the proposed RTZ. This would just be a different. Well,
The same that I'm posting.
I give you, yeah, I give my phone number.
who was that? The county.
You served with Henry. You were, yes.
Wait, no, we're shaking. So you're gonna negotiate, yeah.
Mute myself. Oh. Hello, can you hear me? This is our Zoom test.
Yeah, but you will get it.
Yeah, so I was just to see.
Yes, we can hear you
Okay, thank you for your patience.
I can show you right here
and see you.
that there's only
Can you hear me in the chambers? Okay,
and they don't
perfect.
even make the final decision.
And the question, she had made a comment, which I'm gonna ask.
The coffee.
That
what there's actually, you know, the employee room here that we have access to, but I don't think we can do it right now. So Jill has the card to get you in there, and they have those by the cup, those Keurig cups or whatever they call them. So next break, I'm doing coffee.
The question is, would she be happy enough?
Have you noticed, like, every now and then, the air conditioning comes on, it gets, like, really freezing in here? Oh, I was just going to say, a year and a half after that trip, I went to, I was gone for about
technical issues.
If everybody will, okay, there we go. Our microphones are working. If everybody would please have a seat. I've been told that we've resolved the issue with Zoom, and we will go ahead and get started. What I'd like to do is open up the public comment for a little bit first, and I'd like to ask Ms. Maria Cruz if she would please come up and speak.
She needs to be sworn in.
If you would raise your right hand, please.
I do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mrs. Maria Cruz, 1447 Miller Road. I'm sorry that I had to come in like this. I have a sister in the hospital, that's why I was Zooming, and I could hear the people talking, but you all could not hear them. So I'm here, got in the car, came here, because this is important. The first comment I have is, it's interesting. Our city, the people that represent us, they've been talking to the commissioner, they've been talking to Miami-Dade, they have been talking to the residents. We have not been asked. Nobody has said, okay, how about you? What do you want us to say on your behalf? No, they're cutting deals without talking to us. And then this is what we're proposing. No, we are the taxpayers. We're the people that they represent. They should listen to us first before they propose anything. Because guess what? We may be agreeable, we may not be. They need to hear us first. Let me tell you, this is the same thing that has happened with the waterway and the bridges, because you know what? They decided this is how we're gonna do it and forget about what the people want. You know what? We have a vote. We have a voice. We pay taxes. They need to listen to us. That's number one. Number two, I'm mesmerized. Almost 80 years old, I'm gonna get in my car, go to Metro Rail, park there, get on Metro Rail, get off Metro Rail, go on the mover, then, I'm gonna go to West Palm Beach, connect with this and that and the other thing. How many of people that live in Coral Gables is gonna do that? If not, what? We're gonna get on the trolley to get to the bus? Come on, guys. This is a city where most of us have cars. We expect to go with driving our car. When I get in my car, like today, if I had to wait for Metro Mover, I couldn't have made it here. This city, our residents, are car driven. We're not gonna get on a bus with strangers. Oh, God forbid me. What if they have COVID, or what if they have some disease? I'm gonna sit next to a stranger? Think about our population. You know what? I'm almost 80 years old. I can tell you I will not do it, and most of our elderly will not do it. That's bananas. Number two, the University of Miami should be responsible for their housing. I remember Bill Harnett telling me many months ago, because he's been there so long, that the University of Miami had an agreement with the city about the number of people that they could enroll. I guess we've forgotten that, or we have agreed to disregard it. So now we have to make possible for those students to be housed here, because the university doesn't provide the housing that they need. It's our job now. And you know what? The interesting part is most of the students that come to university, whether they pay out of pocket, or they take loans, or they get grants, they're paying upwards, I hear, of $80,000 a year. And they need affordable housing. You know why? Because they live by themselves and they don't work. So you know what? We have to provide affordable housing for them. Explain that one. And the third one is, any of us that live near the University of Miami, and I live half a block, when they tell University of Miami students do not drive, go by my house, look across the street, and look at all the plates from New Jersey, North Carolina, whatever. They're not the residents, they're the students. They park in front of our homes, they disregard. I'm telling you, our neighborhood is full of student housing. We have so many houses that house students that have 5, 6 cars in front of their houses. Enough is enough. Now, I'm telling you, I was driving and taking notes, okay? We're compared to South Miami. We're not South Miami. We're not South Miami. And that area is not a business area. We're infringing on the residents, on the people that bought their homes to have a nice home in a beautiful city, beautiful. And now we're gonna make it easy for the people that are transient, because the University of Miami are not residents, they're transient. They come, they be here for some time, and then they leave. And we have to accommodate them. It's not right. It's not fair. This is not something that we want. And I bet you that if you were to ask most of the residents, they would tell you it is not a problem. We should not have to be providing housing for, every time I hear is student housing, student housing. That's not our business. Let me tell you, when some of these big buildings were built, there were not student housing. There were going to be rentals, but not student housing, God forbid. Yeah, they were student housing. And we were lied to. Enough is enough. You all represent us. Come on. You know what? First of all, the city should not be talking on our behalf without asking us what we want. That's number one. Somebody needs to let our commissioners know that nobody talks for me before they tell me, give me a chance to talk about it. That's number one. Number two, the university needs to step up to the plate. They, instead of building, they keep building, build housing. Do it, or restrict the number of out-of-towners that come here because you cannot provide housing. Don't tell the parents, oh yeah, there's buildings that you can rent. No, parents should know that when they go to university, the university should look after their kids. I'm sorry, wrong is wrong. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Ms. Cruz. Jill, how many people do we have on Zoom?
We have a few that had signed up, so I'm going to try this again.
Well, we only had two others.
We
right?
had two. Ms. Cruz came, so we have two people. Let's call those two individuals.
Mr. Senior and David. Those should be
Mr.
limited.
Senior, can you please,
Could you call David, the next individual?
he's not connected.
He's not connected, so we only have Mr. Senior?
Maybe he's coming through now.
Hello.
Yes, hi, how are you? If you would like to be sworn in, we need to see you. You can still speak if you like without being seen. Mr. Senior? We can see you now. Can you? We can't see you now.
His mic is crossed on.
Your mic is muted, Mr. Senior.
Oh, mute.
Now I
Okay.
can hear you. Yes, sir.
Okay, so you wanted to swear me in?
Only if we can see you and we can't. So
Check your camera.
if not,
I don't know why.
He has his finger on the camera, I think.
is your finger on the camera, sir?
Oh, maybe. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Wait.
If we can now just turn the camera to you.
That was pretty good. Detective
You can
work.
see that.
I don't know what.
I do know the positions here.
It must be the camera. Supposed to be looking that way.
It's okay. Maybe you can just turn towards the camera.
Oh, wait a moment, because it's hard for me otherwise.
Sir?
Okay, I got
Okay.
it.
If you would please raise your right hand.
Yes.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
You've been sworn in. Yes?
I do.
Thank you.
do? Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I've been here. Okay, I live at 6012 South Center Street, which is, about 2 blocks from
from Hardy, and I block off not bad about I forget the name of the street. But anyway, the traffic here is horrendous. You know, at times Hardy is like a snake going through the hole, and you can't even turn right. And then when it goes to Maynara, it makes the snake goes to the left. When you try to make a left at the US 1, you know, I used to do it with a thesis. I don't do it because you're not going to get to accident. You know, so now the best one is right next to the marks. Once 1,000 people or more are going to be living in that building, you know, I can see traffic. I mean, the traffic is horrendous. You can't just the developers. They do their building and they go. They don't live here. But the people that have made Coral Gables the way Coral Gables is are the residents. I've been living here since 1961, okay, in this area. And I love it, but it's getting difficult by the day. You know, we just, you know, we got to fight, I guess, with the state, with the county, but they'll let us live like we've been living. You know, how can they change all the rules? You know, when I remember when President Reagan came to Miami when he was president, and he saw the metro. His comment was, "Oh, that's a white elephant that they've done here, like a waste of money." Okay, well, you know, it was like that for a bunch of years. You know, now it's getting little use. But you know, that shouldn't be to the detriment of the people that live in the area. You know, it's you know, the traffic is bad. You know, how can you know, that means these other lots are going to be turned like the marks. We're talking about probably about 3,000-4,000 more people living in that small area. You know, it's just you know, the people that live south, like I do, you know, are affected. You know, it should, you know, we got to see how we can fight this, because it's just not fair that outsiders can dominate what gets done on the city. And by outsiders, I'm talking the state, the county, okay, the developers.
Thank you, sir. Thank you
For Gables used to have their own, and it was very hard. Okay, well, thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you for bearing with us.
For letting me talk. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Jill, the other gentleman, David, is not on anymore, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Pat Block,
Was he on before?
yes,
Okay. And that's the last person?
correct.
Okay.
Close the public meeting again.
After this gentleman, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
Was this already signed up from before?
Yes. Jill said that this gentleman was signed up from before.
So we send various messages to, she's coming through now.
Your microphone is muted. If you could please unmute. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Thank you. If you'd like to be sworn in, we do need to, in San Francisco, perfect.
Right, sorry.
That's okay. Could you raise your right hand, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
I have a question because somebody in the meeting, a commissioner.
Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Oh, sorry. It's Pat Parker, 720 Coral Way, Coral Gables, Florida.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have lived in South Gables on Sunset and on Portillo, and my family's lived on South Alhambra. And what the developers are getting away with is really a big problem. And one of the commissioners or somebody on your dais said that when the people from the Mark didn't get their way, they went to Miami-Dade and got this overlay done. That's not fair. It's manipulative, and it's not what Coral Gables, if Coral Gables says no, it's no. And if you can then go to the Dade County and get Coral Gables overridden, I think Coral Gables has to make a stand on that. That's not fair. And everybody I know said the traffic is absolutely horrendous. When they were doing the Paseo, your traffic study said it would have no effect on traffic. And I spoke at that time and I said, even a kindergartner knows that if you have that many people and it's going to affect traffic, it's been terrible. And that tiny little park, we, for the waterway, they tried to put in townhouses, and we were concerned about the garbage pickup and stuff affecting the children in the park. Now, I don't think anybody can park in the park, and it's very dangerous for children and other people. I think Coral Gables has to take a stand and not be bullied by Dade County, or more bullied by a developer who can run to Dade County and get your overturned. If they wanted you 8 feet, you said 7 feet, and now what have they accomplished? They've accomplished maybe 13 feet. So I think we have to really look at that as a city, as a commission, that we can't be bullied by even Dade County. We're part of Dade County, but we're our own municipality. And Coral Gables has always been of the people, for the people, by the people, and somewhere we got lost.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your comments. I'm going to go ahead and close it again for public comment. Sue?
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Regalado and Anthony. It's good seeing you in a different context. But I have some questions for the commissioner, if I might. Thank you so much.
Of course.
I think you mentioned that the developer is Landmark, I believe, right? Landmark out of Athens, Georgia. And of course, we know Landmark because they created the Venera project. It is student housing. They're a student housing developer. So they came and lobbied you to get this on the commission agenda.
They made a request to be considered for the RTZ.
Okay, and you sponsored the legislation to make that happen. So as the sponsor of this legislation, can you slow down this process? Because you're hearing tonight residents that have no idea what's going on in their neighborhood and how it's going to affect them. Number one, it's summertime, and a lot of those residents that are going to be directly affected aren't even around. Can you, as the sponsor of the legislation, slow the process down?
I have already put in, this process already started. I came before the commission, and I think that that's important. I came before the commission before this started and explained to them and answered all of their questions regarding this application. And that was like, if you can get June 10th. So again, I mean, we had a discussion about it. We've talked about it in the past. I met with Coral Gables when the RTZ was put in. As I mentioned earlier, the RTZ had a 2-year period in which the municipalities had to consider doing these overlays and figuring out if they were going to change their comp plan. So the process has already started. And that was my point earlier to Felix. The process has already started. I think that it's great that Coral Gables is considering making changes to their comp plan, and I've been happy to meet with them and discuss with them all the different options that they have. And like I mentioned, this is the first RTZ that comes with an interlocal where the city gets a seat at the table. So I have no regrets as to how we have entered to this point. I really have done everything to have Coral Gables participation, just like I did with South Miami and just like I've done with all of my cities.
All right, but you're hearing tonight residents that are saying, first I heard about this, it was within a couple of days, so now you're actually hearing from the people that are going to be directly impacted. Forget the
Respectfully, Sue, I
commission,
hear from
forget the
people.
city
Respectfully,
administrators.
Sue, I hear from people all the time, and I'm happy to sit here and listen to them, and I spoke to them during the break.
Yes.
And we're happy to receive their calls and their emails. But if we were to stop a governmental process just because someone says that they did not know about it, government would not function. And you should know that as a county employee.
So I mean, you're going to take these comments and say, tough luck.
No, we have a public hearing, and we welcome them to attend the public hearing at the county, and they have their right to speak here. They have their right to speak to the Coral Gables commissioner. The manager is sitting here. There's plenty of opportunities to speak to all the stakeholders. The only time where they will not be allowed to speak to stakeholders is if this developer decides to go live local, and then we're all out of the conversation.
Okay, so the answer to my question is no, you are not going to slow down the process.
Your characterization is incorrect, and I disagree with you.
Okay, we can agree to disagree, but that's what I
Respectfully.
heard. But let me ask you something. You were talking about the SMART plan, and you were talking about the impetus for creating RTZ zones, rapid transit zones, was because the county was going to create all these fantastic transit ways, whether it be more rail, bus, rapid bus. Kendall was going to be a east-west corridor, but
I didn't say that. I said that the nodes were created in the 1970s with a plan, and that the county in this area did build the Metro Rail. The rapid transit zone is an attempt to utilize existing investments in transit. And if you would listen to our county meetings, you would hear that my fellow commissioners complain about how this district in particular has more access to transit than any other district. There are districts that don't have any access to transit. And that's why the rapid transit zone was created, in order to incentivize people to use transit, so that the county can then take into account and comply with the promise that was made when I was 10 years old. So what happened, while I was a child and with the half penny really is out of my hands. I just try to do the best that I can with the tools that we have been given.
okay, so a lot of residents were saying, you're asking people to use a Metro Rail system that goes from Dadeland Station to basically downtown and the offshoot to the airport. Okay, one of your fellow commissioners, Oliver Gilbert, was quoted as saying, "We misplanned. We told the public that it would cost X amount of dollars, and we were wrong. It's going to cost triple the amount. We have no money." I'm paraphrasing one of your commissioners, okay?
Oliver Gilbert, who was the chair of the county commission, made it a priority to do the North Corridor, which was promised when the half penny was done. That is currently in the NEPA study, as are other transit plans. The federal government was, for many years, only funding Smart Starts. Even that funding has now been paralyzed. And if you've been following the state budget, we actually have issues with the match that was provided by FDOT originally for the Northeast Corridor, which goes all the way to Aventura. So I don't think that you can make a blanket statement, whether you're quoting Oliver Gilbert or not, about a 35-year process.
Okay, but you make a great point. There's really no money to build transit at this point in time. So we're stuck at this point in time with the bus rapid transit system that's going to connect to the Metro Rail, basically a north-south corridor, no money for east-west or whatever, okay, at this point in time.
Well, at this point in time, the county has several NEPAs, and the NEPAs are funded. There are projects that we're moving forward with, but they take a long time. The county has also invested in lots of other options that do require people to make connections, as do all forms of transportation. I don't think that you can assume that there's one form of transportation. But to your point, one of the reasons that we're investing in the RTZ is to have users where they can walk to these stations and use transit. That's the entire point.
Okay, so to that point, I don't know, do you still sit on the TPO, the Transportation
We all sit
Planning
on the
Organization?
TPO. Yes,
Okay.
and I am the chairman of Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety.
Fantastic. Okay, so to your point, it's kind of like the cart before the horse. We're forcing all these people into a dense area to use Metro Rail that isn't going to be expanded for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, okay? And if we did force them to use Metro Rail, guess what they're saying to us? Guess what the TPO is saying? They're not using Metro Rail. Headline, transit ridership has declined steadily. So all the TPO studies, these are studies from 2022 all the way up to this
That
year.
includes buses, and it is not true of Metro Rail. Actually, Metro Rail is being used more now than ever because of the development in part of the rapid transit zone and the investment that we have made in upgrading our stations, which were 30
I don't know what I'm
years
reading
old
here then,
before the
because I
development.
have a pre-pandemic to current study here, and it says that levels of ridership are down 14 to 26%.
That includes COVID.
I know it includes COVID. This is 2019. COVID started in 2020.
But the decline that you're talking about includes
Sue,
COVID.
if we could allow the commissioner to answer the question.
Correctly,
Okay.
because I don't think this is.
Oh, okay, there's a point I'm getting to, because we're pushing RTZs, and yet we have why are we pushing RTZs when there is no transportation plan to allow these people to go wherever they want to go?
Respectfully, the RTZ item was passed over 4 years ago and is the law on the books for the county and has been the marker for a comprehensive master plan. So as far as any issues with the RTZ, respectfully, that ship has sailed.
Okay, so again, the TPO, again, all studies from TPO, you sit on the TPO, it says the transit use decline attributed to Uber, Lyft, and taxi use by age group. The biggest groups that you're trying to attract to an RTZ, which would be a
Those
student
studies
population.
are countywide studies, Sue. That is not District 7.
Pardon me?
That is not District 7. That is the entire county. And there are parts of the county that have no transit, as
Mr.
you
Chair,
yourself
if-
just pointed out.
If I may, Mr. Chair, that may not be a factual evidence, so I don't know if that should be continued to push on something that the commissioner is saying to the board member that's not factual. I think we should respect
Well,
that.
all I'm doing is
But that
quoting
may not
from,
be factual, Sue.
the transportation, you can have this, I can put it into the record.
Yeah,
This
but you
is
can
from-
put anything on record and be not factual.
But that's a
Well,
countywide, that's a
you're saying that the
countywide.
transportation planning organization, which the commissioner sits on, is creating false documentation?
Countywide.
That's
Countywide.
countywide. We're not talking about countywide. We're talking about District 7.
Okay.
Those are different facts, very different facts.
Okay, fair enough. But by the way, I do have a breakdown of the Douglas Station, and the Douglas Station has gone up 2%, okay, has
It
gone
was
up 2%.
under construction.
Pardon me?
It was under construction.
No,
It was closed for 8 months.
I understand that, but it's only gone up 2%. So we're not seeing a massive amount of people going to use Metro Rail. And the TPO says, in fact, ridership.
We were shuttling them to Grove Station because the Douglas Station was closed because we were repairing it.
Okay, all right. So in other words, what happens at the meeting next week, Tuesday? It's a public meeting. The county committee has a public
Transportation.
meeting next week, Tuesday at 9 a.m. How are we notifying the residents directly affected about that meeting that's happening less than a week from now?
The county has no changes in its notice requirements. We always have committee on the same week. All RTZ items always go to transit. They have been published. We have told people about it. There's no,
But
okay,
Sue,
yes.
just one thing is, if you have an issue that is with the county and the overall, then that would be something to bring up and actually attend that transportation meeting at 9 in the morning and bring up your issues.
Well, it's
And
not
then-
my issues, it's the residents' issues.
Let them go then.
But they don't know the meeting's happening.
Sue, I understand, but I think in this process, in our process, I'd like to deal with what is the city's issue,
Okay.
which is important as opposed to what the county's issue is.
Okay. All right.
That's why we're here.
Okay. All right, Chairman. But with that said, what is the city of Coral Gables going to do between now and Tuesday at 9 a.m. to notify the impacted residents that is going to be their only opportunity to speak to the county? What is the city going to do?
it is not their only opportunity. They will also have second reading.
So I've discussed this with residents over the phone, through emails. I've sent them links of where they could attend this meeting. I'm not sure what else you think we should do as a staff person for the city of Coral Gables. But they are, of course, welcome to join the meeting on Tuesday at 9 a.m.
Okay. And who's representing the city of Coral Gables at this meeting?
We'll have our intergovernmental affairs manager there.
Okay. So we're going through this process. Are we doing this for naught because the commission is going to do it anyway? Are we here just because?
I have no way of knowing what the commission is or is not going to do. It's a process.
Okay, but the commission voted unanimously with 2 absent members unanimously for this, right?
On first reading, yes. But we cannot discuss it at first reading, and that's why we have a committee process.
Okay. And commissioners usually vote for each other's projects. So it's probably going to be another unanimous vote, wouldn't you say?
I have no way of knowing that.
Okay, so
it's a
let me
10
ask you this.
committee.
Are we wasting our time here?
Sue, that's inappropriate, I'm sorry. It's
That's,
not for-
you're crossing the line there.
It's not for this. If residents have an issue with the county, they need to go to their district commissioner and voice their opinion. If they have an issue with the city, there's appropriate channels within the city to voice your opinion also. Our job on this board here today is to listen to all the evidence and at the end make a determination based upon what you feel is the correct thing or not. I'm not saying that you're right and I'm not saying that you're wrong. But to interrogate somebody as if they're on trial, to me, is just not appropriate.
Well, I'm sorry you don't like my line of questioning, but we need answers because we haven't gotten them, okay? The residents, we're here to protect the residents, okay? We're not here to protect anyone else except the residents.
Respectfully, Sue, I am elected by the residents, and I also represent the residents.
And I'm glad you do.
And I'm happy to discuss with them whenever they want to.
I'm glad you do. It's
So
just
if you have any specific concerns, and by the way, you're asking me about an item that isn't even on the agenda. I'm here to help you navigate an item on the agenda that is a potential change to your comp plan that seeks to mirror the RTZ. I'm not here to discuss the RTZ item that is before the county commission. That will occur on Tuesday, and you're welcome to attend.
Okay, but because you have all this knowledge, I'm asking you things like the smart plan at RTZ to have some,
And I'm
to have
happy
some
to
more
answer
information.
them. I'm just not in the mood to be berated by you at 8:34 in the evening.
Well, I'm sorry if you feel I'm berating you. I
Just your-
didn't intend to do that. I'm not doing
So-
that.
You
If we
don't
can-
have a question. You're just making a statement, and you are within your right to make your statement. It's just that you have other board members that actually have questions, and we can do that, and then you can go back to saying whatever you would like. But I would like to answer their questions. So unless you have a specific question.
I will move on, and I did have a specific question at the beginning, and I think the answer was no, so thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Robert?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, welcome. And I apologize for the uncomfortable situation that we're putting you through. First and foremost, I want to express my gratitude to you for your commitment and willingness to work with the Coral Gables, limiting the height to 120 of the Gables RTZ subzone to 120 feet where 150 feet could be possible, and limiting the area of the distance from the station to those 4 particular properties, one which is already completed, built, and not, further than we could possibly go. Thank you. Let's be very clear while we're here tonight. There was a project that came to this board last year, which my firm was the architect at the time. I'm no longer the architect to that project. That project was an 8-story building with a maximum height of 96 feet, fronting US 1, direct connection to the Metro Rail station with a bridge that linked the station to the site via the pedestrian bridge. 3 of the board members of this board voted to deny the project. 3, I had to recuse myself because it was my project. 3 board members voted to deny the project, 3 voted for the project. And we know where they are. I mean, it's clear. Because of that decision, because the application failed, it opened the door to property owners to say, hey, we have the option in Miami-Dade County to either go through the RTZ because of the proximity to the Metro Rail, or in the worst case scenario, we could go live local. And that will be detrimental because we cannot control that. Before I finish and give my opinion, I want to ask a couple questions to Jennifer, and one recommendation that I think of. Jennifer, you we are creating a 25-foot rear setback buffer, landscape buffer, because all these property are in excess of 300 feet.
Yes.
I verified because the property I was working with is in excess of 300. So essentially, you're gonna get a 25-foot linear park buffer abutting the residential. Correct? I try to go through this over the weekend. I read a lot of it, and I understand the majority of it. There was one that I missed, that you brought up a good point today, that maybe we could look at it. We're proposing, the Gables is proposing that on US 1, project fronting US 1, at 100 feet, you step it back 30 feet, right?
Correct. 100 feet up in the air, vertical.
Right. My recommendation would be that setback, that step back, let's call it, it would be more advantageous to do it maybe in the back area, not so much on US 1, because US 1 is a very wide road. So I much rather have the height on US 1 and not so much on the backside. And I think that could make, more sense.
That's what I mentioned, Robert.
Okay?
That's exactly what I mentioned.
And that to
That's
me
what you
would-
meant by the step down.
Yes, in the back. So
The
I
back,
think,
not
so that would be, look, those are the two only, question and comments that I have. In closing, if we don't approve this tonight, we will end up with the county's RTC's regulation, which will be at a minimum 150 feet with a much wider distance from the station. Or even worse, like I mentioned before, we could end up with a live local project, which none of us, including one of the architects on this board, will want to see there.
It's only you and me.
Okay? I didn't want to name you, but so to me, I think this is something that we must take care of it tonight. And I will be prepared to make a motion to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to say,
Alex?
Thank you, Chairman. And I want to say, echo your thoughts. First of all, Commissioner, I want to thank you for being here and send my regards to your dad. He's a good friend of ours. I just had a simple question because a lot of the questions I had have been answered. You had mentioned that the Gables, what you're seeing from the Gables is a good first step. What is it that you would like to see more of, less of? How have you guys had any communications?
We did. We had several meetings. We've been more than happy to meet with staff and talk to them the same way that we did with South Miami and the same way that we do with all the cities in terms of what was the intent of the RTZ and what we would like to see. I disagree with the parking. And it's when we say that the county does not require parking, what we're saying is that we're allowing the developer to determine whatever parking they need based on whatever model they have. We have yet to have an RTZ that does not have parking. It just depends on who they are building for and why. Like I said, in the case of Vox, they decided to use the Metro Rail parking because it's student housing that they decided would not have parking. So they have access to the parking lot at the Metro Rail station, but that's where it begins and it ends. So I think it's important to give people flexibility. They're all building different products along the corridor. And that's been one of the reasons that developers have chosen the RTZ. So I think the elimination of the paseo is good. I mean, to the point that was made earlier about the setbacks. Obviously, if you start with so many setbacks, you start limiting the amount of area that you can build in. And that's what gives you the extraordinary height. Because if you can't build out, you just go up. So I caution them to just be concerned, be mindful of that. But I think this is, I think it's a good first step. I mean, I can tell you the application that is before us now is smaller than what we're discussing because we're saying that it can't be bigger than the thesis.
And how big is the thesis? If I'm sorry to interrupt you. How
Well,
tall
the
is the
thesis is 125 feet, but the Gables 1 tower is 150 feet.
Right. So, but I think that the overall intent of the overlay is to start having this conversation, right? In terms of what can be done and what this corridor can look like, utilizing Coral Gables as opposed to the county, or to Robert's point, live local, which doesn't have any of these limitations,
And
right?
there will be time if this is not quote unquote accepted to amend it, change it to at least, I guess, have some sort of compliance, or is it,
what do you mean,
is
like-
Tuesday, the deadline is like, if the city were to submit, if we were to approve this motion and it carries, is there still time to change the parking if that's something that's still an issue further down the road, or?
Right, so this is only the first
Yeah.
meeting we're having this, Planning and Zoning Board. It would go to commission with approval of this board in August in the second reading, and later, probably September.
Yeah, so that's your process. Again, I think, we're confounding two issues, right? One thing is the current application that's before the county commission on one parcel. Right now, what we're talking about is an overlay district that includes this parcel and what Coral Gables is looking at doing in order to change its comp plan for that footprint. Two separate things.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nestor?
Thank you for coming and answering all these questions. I think I echo Mr. Behar's sentiments and listening to the residents' concerns. I think we're at a point here where we're at most restrictive versus preemption, and where the Metro Rail was built way before its time, and the county puts basically the cart before the horse. I think the RTZ and the county and the county failed to develop timely with that very, very forward-thinking project. I feel initiatives like the RTZ are the attempt to right that wrong. And therefore, given that the RTZ, as you said, is done and we have to deal with the laws on the books, I would, and I think I echo a lot of the sentiments of the people that have spoken here tonight, where, I grew up in downtown, in the roads. I'm used to development and using the monorail and the Metro Rail, and people move to Coral Gables to kind of get out of that. But it would be naive for us to think that the development with the growth of the city, I don't think anybody saw the growth 30 years ago to what it is today. And anybody who drives on US 1 can tell you that when US 1 was built, it wasn't built for the amount of people that we have or the cars. Even taking away 50% of the cars, I don't think it's gonna, suffice. So I would rather Coral Gables have some sort of input instead of just being taken completely out of the equation. And I know it's taxing on the residents to think that there's gonna be these buildings going up to service mass transit, but I think that that's the point, there is people, we do like to drive cars, but the point is to get them to use mass transit, whether it be students, whether it be people working downtown, whether it be people going to Palm Beach. I have a cousin who we have a lot of family in Palm Beach, and he takes the rail every time he goes up there, and he lives a block away from Venetian Pool. So there are people willing to do it. I think the adage, if you build it, they will come, is appropriate, but I think our input, it would be great to have some kind of input instead of having a developer cut us out or just go live local. So I echo these sentiments, and something is better than nothing at this point. So,
Thank you. We've heard a lot here tonight. I want to start by saying thank you. You took the time to come and listen to us, whether it was good or it was bad, but you took the time to come, and I think that's part of the process.
I come from the school board. No worries.
But I do recognize that. I think we're at a point within the city that we need to look at what our options are, and if we don't make our own path forward or have some input into the decision, it can only be worse. The project that Robert spoke about, that at one time he was involved, which is the MARC, the board, in essence, turned it down. They went and said, okay, we're just going to go live local. I don't know if it's so much as what was spoken about here, that to do student housing, you're giving them affordable housing to those people. I think the key when you look at certain projects is for student housing, you have a certain amount of units in a common area. And that allows you to get within the percentage that you need to be able to do the live local.
This is not live local, this is
No.
RTZ.
Right, but what I'm saying is, the points that we have bad is the live local is a worse alternative that we're getting to.
And what I would add to that analysis is, in this corridor, the top of workforce, which is 120 AMI, is under market rate, significantly under market rate.
Okay.
That's the issue. So when you talk about workforce housing and the price point for 120 AMI, and you spread that along the county, in many places it's above market rate, so it doesn't work. In this corridor, it is significantly below.
Can I interject for a second?
Yes.
Sorry, I just have one question. If a developer does decide to go live local, what input are they required to take from the residents, from the city, from the county?
Nothing.
It's an administrative process.
Right, and I think that that's something that needs to be conveyed to the residents, that if a developer does go for, let's call it the nuclear option, whatever they come and they say, and it's just we're at the behest of the developer and him complying with live local.
Right, so live local creates a statutory compliance, but it has a twofold loss. Not only do you not have input or control over the density and intensity, but you also lose the tax base.
Right.
And going forward, I'm looking at it not as, the way I'm looking at it is not a specific project that's before us, but the RTZ that's before us. There's been a lot of talk about the MARC or other projects. When those projects come before us, that's when I will look at those projects. I echo, and my sentiment is the same as Robert as far as a step back if that's possible. And what Felix said, that makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know if it's doable or if it's possible, but if it is, that does make sense. What I like about it is if I'm looking at the quarter-mile distance, I'm including a lot of other projects. And one of the projects that was mentioned is the Gables Waterway. The way the Gables is looking at it right now, it does not include the Gables Waterway project. That's not to say that they cannot come before us and ask. Anybody can come before us and ask. It's up to us, and it's ultimately up to the commission to make that determination, not just us. I do know that the properties that we're looking at behind it are commercial property, which is a 4-story apartment building that is behind.
Yes, multifamily.
It's multifamily.
Correct.
It's 4-story.
I believe so.
That's there. And then behind that is also multifamily, and I think the area is zoned duplex. So to me, in a way, it makes sense. I would like it to be able to be stepped down in the back as opposed to the front, the way Robert said, if possible. But I am in support of moving this forward. And I think, unfortunately, there's a meeting that's going before the transportation on the 9th. I think if we don't act now, we may not be able to act. And I think that's very important. That's the way I read it, and that's my understanding.
Mr. Chairman, sorry to interrupt you. It's 5 minutes to 9. We must take a quick extension.
Let's do that. Does anybody like to make a motion to extend the meeting past 9?
I'll second.
We have a movement.
For how long?
For how long?
Just to take into consideration that I don't think we can get to the rest of the agenda.
We're not, this is just, I think, so to conclude this
That's fine.
item.
So
May I
15 minutes,
suggest 9:15?
So 9:15 is your motion, Alex?
Yes. A second.
You concur? Second. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So for those reasons, and I'm sorry I lost my train of thought a little bit, but
You supported the patch.
but for those
You supported the application.
but for those reasons, the fact was that come to transportation in the 9th, we're not going to have a say as to what we can do. You did say that you were here and you spoke and you gave, you spoke with the city. I assume you spoke with previous city managers. They didn't bring it at any point before us. You know, I'm glad we have Mr. Iglesias with us, the city manager, because he understood that it was important and to bring it forward right away. And for that, I do thank you. That's really my comments.
Then, Mr. Chair, I'm gonna make a motion to approve. I would like to put, if we can, the step back, instead of being on US 1, be on the back of the property, closer to the residential.
Just to be clear, right now, the way it's drafted, it's 45 feet and then 10-foot step back that we have everywhere else. But you're
Right,
saying
but-
have a greater step back.
But
You're saying like the massing. You want the massing towards the road.
towards the front.
Right.
Towards
It's more
US
than
1.
massing, yeah.
Right, Felix?
Correct.
Okay, so I'll make a motion for that.
Jennifer, you understand the motion?
Yeah, just to clarify, right now, as the way it's drafted today, there's a 10-foot step back above 45 feet in the back.
Then you
facing
could go up to
residential.
100, right? You could go up to 120
On the back, yes. You're
on the
saying
back.
have a greater
So
step
what
back of more
I
than 10.
create an additional step back at 100 feet.
Okay.
Instead of doing it on the front, do it on the back. You're not changing, you're not losing anything, just put it on the.
Massing, it's a massing. It's a massing issue.
Correct.
Breaking
And that
the
is
scale
on
down.
the first item, which is F1, that we're taking up first, the
With
motion.
those changes, I'll second the motion.
Okay, well, the I think it's the F2 that's going to have the amendment with the step back.
Right, so right now we're doing the F1.
So we have to have a motion on F1. F1 is the comp plan amendment.
Correct. So Robert,
I'll make a motion to approve.
we have a second.
Where would the step back come into play, in this item or the next item?
Let's
Next
talk,
item.
the next one, let's talk about that, the step back at the next item. We have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion?
I'm sorry, who's the
A
second?
second?
One question,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chair. My concern right now is that the footprint is specific and it's smaller, you said, correct?
No, the application that is before the county commission is just one parcel. One parcel.
Parcel.
It's one
But-
parcel.
But the graphics that we were shown in
Right.
our
The
packet-
RTZ, it covers all of it, but the county is considering one parcel.
But
However, the issue is
The overlay
the
district.
overlay district, right? So
That's
it's the
four
creation of an overlay district is the match. So this is not about,
your motion is for the entire district,
The motion was being presented to us.
or
those-
only the application?
No. We're not dealing with the application, the county.
application is at
I'm
the
not-
county.
We're dealing with the city of Coral Gables.
The district.
Yeah, which encompass those 4 specific property. One which is already built, which is not doesn't apply to that one.
That's what I wanted to make sure, because we're talking about two different things.
We're
The way the
talking about
county is look-
1150, 1190, 1250, 1320, and 1350. Those are the 4 addresses that we're applying this to. I don't care, what the county's doing.
Perfect, that's clear. Second thing, on this particular, to our city attorney, on this particular issue that we have right now, this motion, I wanted to make sure that, do we express our concern about the improvement, what should be an improvement to Caballero and US 1, which is the choking point of this entire neighborhood? Does that go in now, or would that be in the second application?
I think it should be in F2.
Right.
F1 is really just overarching.
And that really should be on project
Comprehensive plan.
specific, because we put conditions
Right. but-
on projects.
So Robert, what I wanted to make sure was that we didn't miss the boat by voting on this and missing. that
Okay, fair enough.
opportunity.
And I've got one question. If we pass this, can the county still trump our overlay?
Yes.
Yes.
The county has home rule.
Okay, so regardless of what we
That's
do
the
right
position.
now.
I should say that's the position of the county.
Okay, so
And
regardless
they've
of what.
taken
we-
that position, by the way, on other station projects where they've essentially taken jurisdiction on.
Okay, so regardless if we vote this in The county can come and say, we're
The
doing our
developer
thing.
chooses. The developer chooses what path they take. And the point of the county has always been, meet us at our zoning. We prefer that the developer choose, as long as you have something that's comparable. And like I said, that's what happened in South Miami. The South Miami Sunset Place did not come to the county to be included in the RTZ. They worked it out with South Miami. And that's happened all over the county.
What I could tell you, because the density is still being limited to 125 units per acre.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
I did a quick massing study. You're never going to reach the potential height on the buildings.
Because of the massing limitation.
Right. Okay, I just want to know, I want to get it clear. We vote on this, and the developer for the waterway project says, we're going to bypass Coral Gables altogether. Let's not even bother filling out an application. Let's go to the county. Can that happen?
No, because they're outside of the envelope of the node.
What if
This item is just,
of course, they could bypass Coral Gables.
One at a time, so the court reporter can please take
So
care
in
of
other words, no matter what we do here, the developer can bypass Coral Gables altogether and go direct to the county, because now the county says, yeah, okay, apply for an RTZ zone development. You don't have to even deal with those Coral Gables people.
The county
but the
doesn't say
county's,
that. The county
for
goes
4
ahead
years,
and
this has been
accepts
an
it.
option. For 4 years, this has been an option. For 4 years, this has been an option. An option that has been taken up by many parcels all over Miami-Dade County in several districts, including my own. So,
Okay, but now they're saying, Commissioner, now they're saying the first opportunity in Coral Gables. This is now a great opportunity in Coral Gables.
this opportunity is available countywide.
Mr. Chairman, I think
Yes,
there's
sir.
some confusion here. I think the commissioner is speaking about one thing, Sue is speaking about another.
Correct.
The waterway project, which is on the other side of the canal, but I'm looking at it on Google Map, that is over 1,320 feet away. Why is that important? That's a quarter of a mile.
Correct.
It is that project is in what is our RTZ overlay, but there has not been an item brought to include that in the RTZ. Everything along the entire corridor is in the county's RTZ. Everything along the smart path. So everything is available to those developers, just like Live Local is available to them by virtue of having a commercial
You're
zoning.
speaking about the smart corridor.
Right.
Only the smart corridor.
Yeah, the RTZ is only the smart corridor.
Commissioner, it's fair to say that the further you get away from a hub or a station, the less density you're allowed. Is that fair to say? So if you get half a mile or a mile away from, I guess, Dadeland Station, which would be still considered to be RTZ?
That is correct.
Right.
It is about distance.
Right, so I guess the closer you are, the more density you get, the further you are, the less.
And one issue that has not been brought up but comes up all the time, the RTZ does not include residential. It only includes commercial, because that's another issue that comes up all the time.
And I
right, so
think-
the zoning, you can't take an R1 and port it into the RTZ, just like you can't take an R1 and port it into Live Local, right? So there is an underlay of zoning. There would have to be an upzoning at the municipal level in order to qualify for the parameters within the rapid transit
So
zone.
is that the Gables Waterway project, which what is the zoning on that?
It's
Jennifer?
MX1, I think, mixed with MF3 and
45-foot height limit, 4 stories.
At one part, but the other part is
it's a mix. It's a mix of mixed use as well as multifamily.
Yes. Multifamily, mixed use, that's all game. For Live Local, for RTZ, and for whatever Core Gables decides to do.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? Let's call the roll, please. Jill?
Felix Pardo,
Yes.
Robert Behar,
Yes.
Alex Bucello,
Yes.
Sue Kowalinsky.
No, with the caveat that this is a waste of time.
Nestor Menendez,
Yes.
Baby Eisenstadt.
Yes.
Make a motion on F2 with the proposed,
So with the step back to be
Additional step back
on the
100 feet.
Backside.
The backside.
Robert, read it specifically into the record, please.
The proposed 30-foot step back, instead of being on US 1, for it to be on the rear of the properties.
For those deep projects,
For those properties,
right,
yes.
at 100 feet.
At 100 feet.
We have a second by Alex?
So there are two setbacks on the backside.
There's two step back. There's one at 45 feet.
I didn't hear the first.
And the other one at 100 feet.
Okay. Yeah. And I would like to condition that, are we in discussion or?
We are in
can you
discussion,
add
sir.
that?
We're in discussion.
So in discussion, again, the intersection of Caballero and US 1, when I looked, when I looked at the staff observation, they basically said that because there wasn't an increase, I was disappointed because they basically said, there we go. In conclusion, this is the memorandum from our Public Works Director. Last paragraph. In conclusion, because the proposed zoning change does not alter the currently permitted residential density of 125 units per acre, the increased building height and potential additional square footage achieved through amendments to the future land use plan and zoning plan and the application of transfer development rights will not result in a decline in the level of service for public infrastructure below the minimum standards established by the city's comprehensive plan. Mr. Chairman, I think it's important that we put an improvement component observation correctly done by professionals to look at that intersection, which has been a problem forever.
But is that
Caballero
even?
And US 1.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I don't know if that is before us. I think that comes
Or if we could
before us
do that
when
here.
a project comes.
Or is that a project specific that is responsible to address those concerns, which are very valid concerns?
Isn't that what we're doing right now?
No, we're.
So
Mr.
Felix,
Attorney?
as your county commissioner, I'm happy to work with the manager looking specifically at Caballero. We don't need an actual project in order to look at Caballero. The issue is that when you look at zoning, you're looking at the Green Book and what FDOT considers an FDC street. It's very different from what you and I experience while we're on the intersection. It's two different standards. So even if you were to consider some limitation to the overlay, that limitation would be written by the FDOT standard, which it's very circular. I'm happy to work, if the commission and the manager want us to look at Caballero, we're happy to work together and look at Caballero and see what can be done. I mean, there's no, if you have a street that you believe is near failure, there's no need to necessarily wait for development in order to address whatever that issue is. We can address that issue through a request from the city, and I'm happy to do that.
Commissioner, if you give us commitment and you will do that, we'll
Happy to
get
do
the manager to do that with
Happy
you.
to do that.
I think the residents will be very pleased and happy about it.
It is a
Happy to do it.
bottleneck, and just two projects that were already built there just made it substantially worse. And being a level F road for DOT, it doesn't make it any better. So when
And the only thing that I could tell you to that is whenever we have those conversations, we're limited because eminent domain no longer allows us to take, and to widen the roads. But when development does come to those areas, then you can request an easement for a widening if a widening is determined to be one of the solutions, or to change the configuration of the lanes. Those are all things that can occur once the property owners come and request something of the city or the county, but we're limited in our ability to take in order to resolve congestion and street failure.
Mr. Pardo, we'll be happy to work with the commissioner, the DOT, and our Public Works Department to see what we can do to minimize the impact of the problem at that intersection.
Okay.
Thank you. We have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion?
I have a question. Commissioner, can we have some kind of assurance that what is being discussed here will end up in the actual plan of that developer?
What do you mean?
The step backs we're talking about, right? We're talking about the massing towards the front.
So right now, we're talking about legislation the city is doing for the overlay district that we're proposing to be consistent with what the county's
Yeah.
proposing.
Yeah.
But we're not controlling where the developer will go. They may come to the county, sorry, they may go to the county, or they may go to the city.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. We're talking about your proposal and Mr. Felix' proposal to have.
It will be
massing
as
towards
part
the
of
front.
our
Overlays, that's the
regulations.
Coral Gables.
Part of
But we
ours.
cannot control if they go directly to the county. We're hoping that those 3 property will go through the Gables, our proposed RTZ program.
And our recommendations are gonna go to the commission anyway, where they may tack on other things or even take our own commission.
Right,
They
right.
could tack on or take off.
And remember, we're gonna have a member of the city of Coral Gables at those county commissions. At that time, that person is the one that say, hey, we have these regulations. Can you try following those regulations?
We're limited on time right now. We have a motion.
We have a motion
We
and
have
a
a
second.
second. I'd like to call the roll, please.
Robert Behar,
Yes.
Alex Bucello.
Yes.
Sue Kowalinsky,
No.
Nestor Menendez,
Yes.
Felix Pardo,
Yes.
Avi Eisenstadt.
Yes. Thank you again.
Thank you again.
We need a motion for deferral
We
of
will.
the balance of the,
Commissioner, please say hello to your father, Tomasito. Thank you.
Thank you. It's, the time I have right now is 9:08, so we have time to make a deferral.
I make a motion to defer all the other items onto the next available meeting.
what's the date and time of the next meeting? I don't know. Are you gonna renotice that, or are
Yes,
we
we
gonna?
will.
Oh, you will? Okay.
Yes, it's August 13.
August 13th, okay.
And I wish that you would calculate the amount of time that you think, because there are a couple of items there that may go along. So if you put them all in the same one, then you don't have any time for.
Well, if something else is coming new, maybe that have to be for the following meeting. How many items we got coming? 3?
So there's these 3, yeah.
3 that
Couple
we're
more.
deferring.
Right.
So those are the first 3, and if you calculate, like Mr. Pardo said, calculate time, maybe we could add a couple more. If not, I don't think they're big items. I went through it.
It's very simple.
I just don't want them all lumped in there. For
So
whatever.
we have a motion to defer. Who's second, please? Alex is on a roll tonight.
You do it,
Are in sync.
you can do it
So we
as a
have
voice
a
vote.
first and a second. Everybody in favor to defer, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody against? No? Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn? We have
I'll second.
2 new people. Alex?
Thank you, Nestor.
Nestor, second. Everybody in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a nice night.